Kenshi is a story about a world that already had its golden age, a nameless, tidally locked moon. The old empires are gone, all that's left is sand, ruins, legends and dangerous tech sticking out of the ground. Three powers are fighting over what remains. The United Cities, a feudal empire of nobles, wealth and slavery. The Holy Nation, a theocracy that cleanses the world with fire and faith. And the Shek kingdom, a warrior culture where respect is earned by strength. And between them are dozens of smaller factions, some fight slavery, some live by raiding, some would happily eat you alive. Some die for ancient artifacts, some get rich doing things they don't talk about. There are also places nobody goes, the really Badlands, where people whisper about legends who vanished from the world of humans. And in the old ruins at night, it can feel like something huge is watching you from the dark. And yeah, I am a part of this story too. My name is Tetsu. I was the heir, the son of frontier lord of the United Cities. My father ruled Bast, the border region facing the Holy Nation. Bast, Durin, Endin and everything around them. Then the Holy Nation came. They burned the whole region. My family was burnt alive in the name of Okra. The survivors were dragged to Rebirth, the biggest slave camp of the Holy Nation. I escaped to Heft, the capital of the United Cities, hoping for help. I got betrayal instead. Emperor Tengu needed a scapegoat. My family was perfect, convenient, already dead. And my father wasn't a fan of slavery, which made the lords hate him for years. That's why they sent him to the frontier to do his duty. Only one problem was still alive. Me. They didn't kill me. They made me nobody. They took everything, my property, my cats, my clothes, my weapons. Then they threw me out in rags and a rusty axe. And they gave me a few days to leave Bast. If I didn't, they'd put a bounty on my head. So now I am alone in a burnt wasteland, full of Holy Nation patrols, bandits and cannibals. I was trained for trade and politics, not for surviving this. But if I want to live, I need allies. And I need to learn fast. Hey everyone, today I'm going to tell you a story that lasted 250 days. We'll travel across the entire world of Kenshi, visit every region and dig into the lore of its factions and old disasters. And we'll try to make this wasteland a little less horrible. So warm up some gohan and pour the sake. We've got a few hours ahead of us packed with content. Before we start, 1 minute on mods and difficulty. The main mod is Kaizo. I played a lot of overhauls and this is the best one that still runs stable and stays lore friendly. It adds dozens of new world states, so the world reacts more to your actions. If you remove a leader, another faction can take the town. It also boosts the difficulty in every aspect, especially enemy stats. And they paired it with a mod that raises attack slots to 5, so enemies don't take turns. Up to 5 can hit you at once. After that, fighting is brutal. Alone against a group, you usually just die. I also added a few vanilla-friendly mods for more armor and weapon variety. Plus a firearms mod. I wanted something new, but not overpowered. I will show the full mod list at the end. I'm really happy with this setup. For difficulty, I only changed 2 things. Death chance is x4 and nests are x2. I didn't touch the rest because most settings either slow the game down, kill FPS or break balance. Like damage multipliers. Raise those and crossbows turn into railguns. I also turned on easy prospecting because I'm not picking a base spot based on prospecting anyway. If you enjoyed the ride, you know what helps the channel. Like, comment, subscribe and maybe share this with a friend who also loves Kenshi. Alright, let's go! My story starts in the ruins of Bast, and I had to get out fast before the United Cities put a bounty on my head. The closest safe town was World's End, right on the border of Holy Nation land. But the road was long. I needed at least some food and some cats for the trip, so I decided to check Drin and Endin first, or whatever was left of them. Preferably without dying to the Holy Nation or worse, cannibals. And there were plenty of them out here. So I grabbed anything around the ruins that could be sold for a few cats. The local beggars did not mind, they were basically doing the same thing. Then I hit the road. If I remember right, Drin still had a bar and a samurai garrison. I figured I could buy supplies there. But right when Drin was supposed to appear over the hill, I saw a Holy Nation soldier, and behind him a whole army. I was insanely lucky that UC samurai were nearby. I decided not to run and helped where I could. All habits, I guess. And it also confirmed something important. Nobody told the Holy Nation I was exiled. They still wanted me dead like before. At least I could get something useful from the battlefield, something better than selling water jugs. And they had to have medicine. Well, they did. But first one of the crossbow guys almost killed me. A damned ball sticking out of my head. Yeah, that was enough hero work for me. I tried to find a medkit, and I was lucky enough that a downed paladin had one. I survived, barely. Turns out I'm not much of a fighter. Big surprise. After that I looted properly, forget water jugs, I grabbed armor and weapons to sell. And there I saw it. Another huge Holy Nation squad was coming right at us. And my run speed was not great. Because I was overloaded, because I had to take everything, of course. So yeah, I paid for my hoarding. Luckily, the hit was not fatal. I had to play dead and wait until every single one of them left, because right now even one enemy is a problem for me. When it finally got quiet, I kept moving toward Drin. It was close. And no, I did not drop the loot, not a chance. The good part is, carrying all that junk actually trains strengths. Everything is simple here, you use a stat, it goes up. I was just happy to see people again who did not immediately try to kill me. At least not yet. In Drin I sold everything to the barman, I kept only a crossbow and a katana. Speed was my only real plan right now. I bought some dried meat and I ended up with a bit over 5,500 cats. The local currency. People say it's named after an emperor of the Second Empire. Not bad, that should keep me alive for a while. I rented a bed and slept until my wounds fully closed, because I was one bad step away from spilling my guts in the street. Still, I was alive, and that was already a win. By morning I could move again. Alright. Hopefully today I do not get executed. Or eaten. I tried to avoid everyone I met on the road, and somehow I reached Endin without major problems. But the place was already stripped clean, nothing left except one house and a couple of beggars. At least they were not aggressive. So I did not stay, I headed straight for World's End. Wish me luck. Soon I saw it on the horizon. It was so high that from here I could only make out one tower. But I was close. All I had to do was cross Okran's Valley, which belongs to the Holy Nation. And yeah, I had a reason to worry. While I was carefully avoiding one Holy Nation squad, another one came up from behind. Nice surprise. I ran, I dodged, sometimes I got clipped anyway. It felt like forever, but I finally reached the town gates. The guards decided to help me, and they dealt with my pursuers. I could finally stop and bandage my wounds. One more hit and I was done. Of course, the moment it was safe, I went to loot the bodies. I started with their leader, a high paladin. And the guy was playing dead. He jumped up and almost killed me. Luckily, the guards were still nearby. I got some expensive gear of him. Problem is, it was Holy Nation uniform. And I really did not want to walk around wearing that. The last thing I need is someone mistaking me for one of them and trying to cut me in half. But the shops were right there, so I spent the whole night hauling and selling loot. By morning I had almost 15,000 cats. Amazing, life is getting better. After that I rented a bed and slept until my wounds fully closed. I got hit hard, but the important part was this. I finally had a place where both the UC and the Holy Nation would not instantly reach me. Once I looked like a human again, I walked around the town, talked to a few suspicious people, normal town stuff. And that is how I found the Machinists University. They answered my questions, not happily, but they answered. From what I understood, the Machinists survived here by fooling the Holy Nation. They set up a few statues outside the town as bait, and the Holy Nation bought it. Meanwhile, the Machinists study the history of the world and recover lost technology. Then they share it through books, hoping it makes life a little less miserable for everyone. And the tech hunters living here, they are basically partners and contractors. They scour ancient ruins for artifacts and old tech. That is why the shops in the town pay good cats for anything connected to lost technology. Which is great for me. As long as the Holy Nation never finds out what is really happening here. While I was walking around, I met Stork, a skeleton looking for work. He offered to join me for 6,000 cats. I'll be honest, skeletons still freak me out a bit. People say a lot of things about them. But he claimed he could fight, and I needed protection. Someone to take hits while I ran for my life. Because after Bust, leaving town walls alone felt like a bad job. And also, what kind of lord walks around without a guard? So I hired him. Was he some legendary warrior? Not really. His gear was also pretty bad. For a moment I thought I got scammed. But I did not regret it, not even close. This was one of the bad decisions I made. He's going to save me dozens of times. After that I checked the shops, and reality hit me fast. All I could afford was a couple of cheap backpacks, a decent first aid kit with a repair kit, a sleeping bag, some food, and a few maps with points of interest. And my cats were almost gone again. So much for being rich. By morning we were fully healed, still basically broke. But I decided to leave the town anyway. I did not even have a clear plan yet, I only knew this. I survived, but if I want to actually live, I need a real squad, better gear, steady food, maybe a house, maybe an outpost one day. Everything costs cats, and if I do not start earning soon, I am dead. And yeah, training skills would be nice too. I decided to move in the opposite direction from the Holy Nation, into the hidden forest. At first I only found a Flotsam ninja camp, but after a short walk past the next hill I spotted a settlement in the distance. That had to be where they actually lived, so I went to check. And yeah, it was their place, Flotsam village. A shop, a bar and their headquarters. The whole village was full of refugees and deserters from the Holy Nation. And inside the HQ I met Mole. She was their leader, and they were openly at war with the Holy Nation. They wanted to destroy it. Our goals matched perfectly. I wanted revenge for Bast, for my family, and for everything that happened to me. I could have joined them right away as a regular soldier, but that was not my style. Then I heard something else. Their base was close to cannibal territory. Mole called them target practice, but cannibals do not just stay in the hills. They treat in scouts, supply runs, refugees and any march south. And that is when I got my idea. I would help the Flotsam deal with the cannibals first. Then they could focus fully on the Holy Nation. And I would not join them as a rookie. I would show up as someone useful, someone they could trust, a problem solver. Thanks to my education and the stories my father told me, I knew there were 3 dominant cannibal tribes. 3 leaders. They lived around the Cannibal Plains and Dead Finger. These lands used to belong to the Dead Cat, but the cannibals broke them. Now the Dead Cat were barely surviving, mostly fishing and working with the Flotsam ninjas. They were allies. Maybe I could push the cannibals back and help the Dead Cat reclaim something. That would give me another ally too. Or at least safer roads, trade and a place people could actually live. But my thoughts were running way ahead of reality. I was standing here in my underwear. Before I start a war, maybe I should get prepared. Stork can take a bite, I cannot, they will just eat me alive. So I wandered the hidden forest, hoping to find something valuable, or at least hunt something, but I found nothing. No ruins, no camps, no even a bone dog nest. No hides, no meat, nothing to sell. So I decided to take a risk and go further north, towards the northern coast. And I am glad we did. Because we found a whole village. It was dead cat, and it was empty. No people, just silence. Yeah, they got eaten. But the supplies were still there. Food, medicine, goods to sell. And we did not even clear half of it. I could already tell we would come back more than once. From a nearby hill we spotted another village. I hoped there would be traders, so we headed there. It was a fishing village, and at first it also looked abandoned, but the bar was open, and there were even people inside. Turns out everyone was just sleeping. These were the dead cat. The barman warned me that cannibals were roaming right near the village. Either he was exaggerating, or we got very lucky on the way in. This is where I sold everything. And then I did a few more runs. If it was not nailed down, I carried it out. The barman was right too. On one trip we spotted cannibals not far away. But we did not get close, not even a little. It was a lot of running, a lot, but it was worth it. By the end I had over 35,000 cats, plus a mountain of food, tools and random supplies. Amazing. And you know what that means. It was time to hire more fighters. Because I do not need courage right now, I need numbers, and the bar was full of recruits. For the first companion I did not even have to pay. His name was Hobbs. All it took was listening to his drunk legends and saying, yeah, sure, amazing stories. And maybe we'll even find that Kenshi he kept talking about for the last few minutes. Honestly, I think the man just needed to sober up. His stats were not amazing, but they were still better than mine, so I was not going to complain. The second guy was named Horse. He said he was the last survivor of a treasure hunter squad. The rest got eaten by cannibals. He promised to lead me to the place they were heading for, full of valuables, if I paid his bar tab so we could travel together. I agreed, and yes, he completely made up the story about the tower. But his stats were about the same as Hobbs, so fine, I will take it. For the third recruit I had to go back to Flotsam village. The good part is the guys talked a lot on the road. Somehow we actually started to feel like a group. Her name was Pia, a runner for the Flotsam ninjas. Her sister was a fighter and she recently died battling the Holy Nation. After that, she did not want to stay here alone. She wanted to leave and was looking for a company. Well, I guess she found some. I had to donate 3,000 cats. She wanted to leave them to the ninjas when she left. But Pia had one big advantage. She could warn us in advance when paladins were nearby. That is going to save us from very stupid situations. And she was fast. Perfect. And after all that, I still had almost 30,000 cats left. Very economical. The rest I planned to spend on gear back in World's End. I remembered there were some good shops there. Well, I thought I would buy more, but cats disappears fast here. I bought backpacks, sleeping bags and supplies, medicine, repair kits, the boring but necessary stuff. For myself I bought an Odachi, great against humans. Stork finally got some armor too, he is our tank after all. Hobbs and Horse got naginatas and armored skirts. Pia got my crossbow and katana, and I made her our doctor. I did not have any complicated build plans yet. Against animals and cannibals this should be enough. They do not exactly wear armor. So yeah, it was not luxury, but it was something. And for the first time in a while I was not walking around in my underwear. Next step was training, and I already spotted some good targets in the hidden forest from the road earlier. Finding river raptors was harder than I expected, but after half a day we finally made it. And they were perfect training dummies for us. Plus, we could sell their skins. For some reason, I was the one getting hit the most. No idea why. Those little monsters managed to slice open my stomach again. I swear, I need armor just for my belly. Stork was a tank, by the way. Taunt was definitely on. But the next day we could not find any more targets, so we had to take a risk. We decided to move towards the cannibal plains, right to the border. And we arrived just in time. At the northern scout post, cannibals were attacking right as we arrived. We jumped in and helped them repel the raid. Inside I met Manny. He was Flotsam's second in command, and a former cannibal hunter. His job was simple: make sure the cannibals never reach Flotsam village. Yeah, sounds like the right man for it. A bit further south we found a second scout post, and that is where I made a decision. For the next 2 weeks I stayed here and fought side by side with the Flotsam ninjas. We moved between the posts, helping defend them, and sometimes pushing a bit deeper to support their forward squads. Sometimes we even patrolled together. A few times I came very close to dying, but overall it worked. These outposts were comfortable in their own way. Beds, training dummies, and the biggest luxury of all: if something goes wrong, allies are nearby. Much lower chance of getting knocked out and carried away for a dinner. And the battles paid too. Cannibals drop weapons, not good ones, but weapons. Every so often I sent someone back to sell the loot, and the cats kept stacking up. In a weird way, it was almost paradise. Sometimes the Holy Nation wandered in too, usually small squads. Sometimes not small at all. And then there were the Berserkers. Rogue Shek fighters who left the Shek kingdom to live like the old tribes again, always looking for fights. What can I say? We kept our limbs by pure luck. Even the ninjas struggled against them. If Stork did not get back on his feet in time and patch everyone up, that would have ended very differently. But our skills slowly climbed, and after a while we started pushing back for real. We could handle small cannibal squads on our own, that felt like a win. And I was more and more grateful that I hired Stork. I cannot even count how many times he saved us and carried our bodies back to safety. So I made him the second medic, because most of the time he was the last one still conscious. On that note, I decided the training phase was over. Our average stats were somewhere around 20 to 30. With good gear, that's not bad at all. We also looted a couple of berserkers, mostly rusty junk but still an upgrade, and I will not lie. Having 80,000 cats in my pocket felt amazing. It was time to return to World's End and prepare for a full cleanup of the cannibal plains. We stayed there for 4 days and I spent almost all my cats, but we upgraded hard. I think our damage and defense basically doubled. I got a new backpack that barely affects combat, a better Nadachi and a set of medium-heavy armor. Stork got a better backpack too, and I kept the fragment axe we looted from a berserker. Heavy weapons cost a fortune, so that was a gift. I also bought him proper heavy armor. Hobbs and Horse got matching kits, 2 solid Nagamakis, which are great against humans, plus plate armor. For Pia, I bought an improved flintlock because I really wanted to test firearms, and a light medium armor set. And we stocked up on supplies for the road. With what I had left, I hired a squad of mercenaries for a week. That would raise our chances a lot. Because the plan was to wipe out 3 cannibal villages and then hit their capital, a captured dead cat town. The first village was honestly not small, big camp, and a lot of cages in the middle. And I arrived at the perfect time because the cannibals were gone. At least that is what I thought at first. It gave me time to open the cages and free a few captured ninjas. They got very lucky. 1 more day and they would have been dinner. I was ready for a fight, but the cannibals still did not show up. Maybe they really were gone. Or maybe they died earlier while I was training nearby. We killed hundreds around here with the ninjas. Either way, I used time to loot the huts. And I actually found good stuff. A really nice katana that I kept for myself, and chainmail too. That felt like a real upgrade. I did not stay long, I headed to the second village. On the way we ran into a small cannibal squad, but they were not a serious threat anymore. The second village was different. This one had dozens of cannibals inside. I had to slow down and wait for a good moment. But they did not let me sit in ambush for long. They spotted us and rushed in. Luckily, I could handle groups like this by now. Once the main crowd spread out, I sent everyone in. And yeah, without the mercenaries, I would not have cleared this place. I would probably be spinning on a cooking pole right now. I really need to grow the squad whenever I can. There were no allies in cages here, so I just looted the huts, and the loot was great again. Store got a big armor upgrade. After clearing the village, I decided to go back to Frozen Village to sell loot and heal up. On the way back, I found the jackpot of all jackpots. 14 big zinc eggs, and each one was worth 4200 cats. Yeah, I was taking those, no debate, cannibals can wait. I somehow stuffed them into our backpacks, but while I was doing that, the mercenary squad just disappeared? They ran off and never came back. Maybe cannibals caught them, who knows? Either way, they took heavy losses already and I would need fresh hires. I sold the eggs for 25,000 cats, and the traders in Frozen Village ran out of cats. So I sold the rest in World's End. In total, I ended up with about 85,000 cats. Now that is what I call being in the right place at the right time. The only problem was I could not find new mercenaries anywhere. But near the fishing village I found a camp of cannibal hunters, and I hired 2 squads. Perfect. Time to hit the last village, and then the capital. On the road we ran into a cannibal squad, and the cannibal hunters showed me the difference between mercenaries and professionals. They did not fight, they butchered. When we reached the third village, I could tell it would not be easy. But I found a great position. I could pull cannibals little by little and deal with them in waves. And since the hunters had a lot of crossbows, it was even better. They shot from the hill while the melee fighters held the line below. To give you an idea, there were about 60 cannibals here. And we were not losing many people. It was beautiful. Well, almost. At one point I got jumped, knocked out and dragged into a cage. Yeah, that happened. The squad had to break me out. And I also found one of my old mercenaries in there. So that is where they went. He was lucky I showed up. As for loot, I found 2 more good chainmails. I gave them to Hobbs and Horse. The village was cleared. Next target was the cannibal capital. I really hoped we could pull this off. The capital was huge. Much bigger than any village we had seen. And there were cannibals everywhere. Not just regular ones, but captains too. Those were much more dangerous. And their leader was there as well, the head of the chariot skull tribe. They called him the Grand Wizard. Dangerous guy, and unlike most cannibals, he actually wore armor. There was also a bounty on his head, 50,000 cats. Crazy. The only catch is, in my situation only the Shek can pay for that kind of trophy. So I would have to carry him all the way to them. We will see if that is worth it. And then I got extremely lucky. A herd of big things attacked the capital. They ripped through the cannibal crowd and sent them out hard, and somehow one of the big things even pulled the Grand Wizard outside. Right into the area where I was waiting in ambush. I did not waste that chance, I hid from behind. Most of the cannibal hunters rushed into the town to fight, while my squad focused on the Grand Wizard. And I have to say, this guy was terrifying. If he had his whole mob with him, we would have been done. But alone, we had a chance. And no, he did not have actual magic powers, sadly. It was still a brutal fight, but we managed to take him down. Pia patched him up immediately and threw him over her shoulder. No escapes. And I stripped his armor too, which was pretty good, just to be safe. I did not want to abandon everyone fighting inside, so we pushed into the capital to help. After the fight, we started opening cages and untying people from poles. And guess what? More of my old mercenaries were here too. What a reunion! In the Grand Wizard's hut I found a lot of great gear, even a light masterwork armor, perfect for Pia, and some excellent weapons as well. I took everything, sorting comes later. And for the Grand Wizard, I decided to treat him the way cannibals treat prisoners. I tied him to a pole and waited for him to bleed out. He did not deserve the honor of a long trip to the Shek, and I was not risking him escaping on the road. By then my contract with the cannibal hunters was over, but they stayed behind, patrolling the capital. Honestly, that sounded like the best possible outcome. In the morning I headed back to Flotsam village, sell the loot, rest and restock supplies. After I sold everything we did not need, I had around 100,000 cats. Perfect. Store got a new, really good armor. Pia also grabbed better armor, new pants and a guardless katana. The rest of the good gear I dumped onto hopes. I did not need it right now, but it was too good to throw away. It would be perfect for future recruits. So yeah, the hardest part of the plan was done. 2 leaders left. Same strategy. I started with the leader of the Node-Bone tribe, the Marrow Lord. I found him nearby in a suspicious lab a bit west of the southern Flotsam scout post. You know that lab? Loot scattered like a free trail that leads upstairs, straight into a pile of cannibals. Nice try, not today. The fight was not even hard, we cleared it clean. Nobody even went unconscious. The squad was getting stronger and the hunters helped a lot. The Marrow Lord had a pretty good helmet. I took it, and he got the same fate as the Grand Wizard. Upstairs we freed a few prisoners too, mostly ninjas, very lucky people. For loot we found a masterwork spring bat. That made me think, soon we can start adding more ranged fighters. I already had 2 good crossbows. We also found a whole crate of solid armor. Back in Flotsam village I swapped my helmet and Pia got a better shirt and boots. I sold the trash and packed the rest into backpacks. The last leader was the boss of the Blood Butcher tribe, the Meat Lord. For him I had to go into Dead Finger. 2 villages first and then the Meat Lord himself in the first village. On the way I passed through Sincone and spotted an outpost on a cliff. I got curious and went to check. It was Bastion, the main headquarters of the cannibal hunters. And yeah, coming there was worth it. Inside I met Robin, the leader. He said he had heard about my squad, about the Grand Wizard and the Marrow Lord. He thanked me and showed real respect. I almost got an ally by accident. He also said he already sent squads to finish off any survivors in those areas. And if I dealt with the Meat Lord too, then everyone here would own. Perfect. Another ally never hurts. It took us about 4 days to wipe out the Dead Finger villages. Some were easier, some were not. The real problem was the region itself. No Flotsam squads nearby, no friendly patrols, just cannibal camps everywhere. So most of the time we moved quietly. One wrong step and it was over. The villages were smaller, so clearing them was simpler, but the loot was worse too. Usually just one hut. And yeah, there were close calls. One time we all got captured and I honestly thought that was the end. Somehow we managed to escape alive and not get eaten. Healing took forever, but at least we kept all our limbs. We also found a lost library, lots of stuff to sell, tech books and maps that revealed new places. Huge win. Then we finally reached the first village, and I just stared at it. Saying there were many cannibals would be a joke. There were tons of them, and after the last fights, I swear these were the strongest cannibals we had seen so far. And leading them was a huge man with a tiny head, the Meat Lord. I checked his strengths. 82. Yeah, this was going too hard. The problem was, our squad was already beaten up, so we needed time to heal. Of course, the village did not let us rest for long, but it helped in a weird way. We could pull them out in small groups while we recovered. Once we thinned out most of the camp, we went in at night. Everyone spread out to sleep, so we could wipe them in smaller groups. And then we walked into the Meat Lord's hut. Wakey wakey! I don't think he even understood what was happening. It was fast. He got the same fate as the other leaders, and honestly, his own people did not even mind. They were ready to eat him while he was still alive. Charming. In his hut, the reward was just boxes of meat, and I'm pretty sure it was not animal meat. So yeah, the name made sense. Terrible price. But the rest of the village had plenty of good loot, so we took it anyway. Once I was sure there were no survivors left, I headed back to Bastion. One hunter squad stayed behind to patrol the village. On the road we ran into another cannibal squad, but without their leader they looked exhausted. Even with numbers, they were not that dangerous anymore. And this time I managed to beat them without the hunters. That felt good. When we returned to Bastion, Robin gave me a ton of respect and said they would handle the rest from here. And just like that, I got my first official ally. I was not even aiming for it, it just happened. Works for me. Now I only had to return to Mol and revisit the cleared areas to see what had changed. Mol was happy to accept my help, and just like that I got my second official ally. She was very direct. If we wanted to reach Lord Phoenix and end the Holy Nation for good, we had to start with his High Inquisitors, Seta in Stack and Voltena in Okran's Shield. Only after that could we think about Phoenix himself. It sounded like a plan, but right now those enemies were way out of our league. The Holy Nation did not appear yesterday, it's not just an army, it's a religious machine. Their law is dogma and every verdict is the will of Okran. They see themselves as the last fortress of pure humanity, and they will burn entire regions if they decide heresy lives there. In their world, a person matters only while he is living by doctrines. Everyone else is either an enemy or material for cleansing. And if you are not human, their land is not for you. Without a human escort, the best case is chains. The worst case is fire. People also tell old stories from the Second Empire, a time when humans were desperate and searching for meaning. That is when the first Phoenix rose up and united them in a rebellion. Not a family name, a title. They believe his soul is reborn into the first sun, again and again, creating the line of phoenixes. To them, Phoenix is a living law, the voice of Okran, and the current one is Phoenix the 62nd. But the Holy Nation is not held together by symbols alone, it's held together by the people who turn that face into ash, the High Inquisitors, generals, judges and executioners in one. They lead armies, punish towns and keep the whole nation in an iron grip. And for me, this stopped being politics. They burned my family alive. So I wanted the Holy Nation gone. Phoenix and all, burned down to the foundation. Mol also gave me a note. With it I could take any Flotsam ninja patrol with me. That sounded amazing. And the best part is, I had time. As much time as I needed, because I still had other work to do. First, I went to check the places we had freed. I wanted to see what actually changed. The first village was taken over by the rebel farmers, people who could not live under UC rules anymore. I understand them now. So that finger belonged to them too, along with the nearby land. Their main outpost, Fort Simeon, was just northeast of Bastion. The suspicious lab was occupied by tech hunters. Honestly, I was glad to see them there. The ghost village was not a ghost anymore. The dead cat came back. And they even knew who helped them. That felt nice. The dead cat town, the old cannibal capital, was fully restored too. People everywhere, life again. And the whole cannibal plains had shifted under dead cat control. And just like that, I got a third ally. Back-to-back wins, somehow. Honestly, I was just happy I pulled this off at all. Since I was still too weak for an open war with the Holy Nation, I decided to get support from their biggest enemy, the Shek Kingdom. But to reach them, I had to cross almost half the world. At least I needed to go through the Folk Islands and Mongrel, because traveling through Holy Nation land is basically suicide. So this trip would not be easy. That meant preparation. More people, better gear, better skills, and who knows what the Shek would demand in return. So I decided to do two things. First, I would build a small outpost. A place where I could start crafting my own gear. It takes time because crafters need many days to become good, so the earlier I start the better. I could also produce things for sale, because living only from looting forever is not realistic. And honestly, I needed storage. Our backpacks were full and I was tired of living overweight. Of course, an outpost means raids, but now I had 3 allies, so maybe they would send reinforcements. Second, I needed research resources, lots of them. So I planned an expedition to hunt them in nearby regions, Floodlands, Leviathan Coast and the Iron Trail, using the maps we found earlier. I might also peek into Purple Sands, Berserker Country and the Shrieking Forest, but I did not expect much there. Hopefully, the Berserkers would not delete me, and we would train along the way too. I did not want to drag this part out, so I will only mention the interesting bits. I started with the outpost. I kept it simple and hired every unique recruit I could find in the towns I had already visited. As fighters they were not impressive, but as settlers they were fine. There were only 5 of them, but it was enough to start. And somehow they were all women. Yeah, a small harem by accident. We bought building materials and went to set up camp. I picked a spot between World's End, the fishing village and Flotsam village. Convenient for trading and so allied reinforcements could reach us before enemy raids. The location was great, a wide open valley, good resources, fertile soil. The only downside was simple. I didn't know who would raid us. If it was cannibals, great. If it was the Holy Nation, we would have problems. First, I built a basic house for a research bench. Then a well, a couple farms and a campfire, because food comes first. I also built a stone processor so we could make building materials instead of buying them, and placed a stone mine nearby. Then I started researching whatever I could. Tier 1 was cheap and we already had a lot of research stuff from earlier travels. And of course, less than a day later the first raid arrived. Thankfully, cannibals. And even better, cannibal hunters came to help. We handled it easily. After that, raids came almost every day. And almost every time someone showed up to help. Hunters, ninjas, someone. Without them, this outpost would have been a graveyard. The only problem was, my yard started looking like a butcher shop. And trust me, later it gets worse. Eventually, there will be so many raiders that even allies will not save me. Once we finished the research I could do at Tier 1, we expanded the base. More buildings, a metal refinery, more farms. Storage moved around, kept everything compact. Then we built a Tier 2 research bench and started on the important stuff. Real walls for turrets, the turrets themselves, as well as training turrets. And right there, my research resources ran out. Not long after, the Holy Nation visited, so yeah, that was confirmed. This time the Flosem ninjas came to help, and the cannibal hunters joined in too. Without them, I think it would have ended right there. We survived, and we even got decent loot out of it. After that, we built proper walls and a gate, as straight as we could. Then I placed 6 crossbows near the gate to cover the approach. And I built training turrets so the settlers could at least learn how to aim. Because if I leave with the main squad, I do not want to come back and find ashes. In total, the outpost took about 10 days. I was happy with it. We were producing building materials, iron plates and food. Not bad. The mines were outside the walls though, which was annoying. I planned to fix it later with drills, once I had the tech. Still, we did not start real armor and weapon production. I simply did not have enough hands. Honestly, I needed like 15 more workers. But there were no good recruits left in the towns I knew. So I chose the other option, find more research resources and unlock tech that reduces how many workers I need, like automatic or drills. Before leaving, I upgraded the squad with the best gear we looted from the cannibals in their huts. Store got an improved fragment axe, Hobbs got chainmail, Pia got the Masterwork Spring Bat because I really wanted to test it. The damage looked insane. I also dressed the settlers in Holy Nation clothes, hoping it would confuse raiders. Spoiler, the only ones I confused were the cannibal hunters. They almost killed us. I learned the hard way that you should only wear a couple pieces, not a full disguise. Overall, the defense was acceptable. A nice surprise was that allied squads actually used my turrets too. I will definitely add more later. The next morning I left the outpost and started the expedition. First I decided to visit the floodlands. When I was in the suspicious lab before, I saw a lot of ruins from up high. I was hoping they still had loot. The floodlands greeted us with a lovely view. Endless rain like it never stops. People say this used to be an industrial zone of the First Empire. Machines building machines, to build even more machines, until the land turned into an empty shell. Some say all the skeletons were created here, which means some of them are not hundreds of years old. They might be thousands. Now it's just dead swamps, leaning towers and ruins of old machines. In the first tower I found Bjorn, a retired skeleton. He looked at me, decided I was an adventurer and told me the floodlands were full of interesting things, as long as I watched out for robotic spiders. Turns out he was living here alone, just waiting for his final shutdown. But when I offered him one last adventure, he agreed. Perfect, another tank. And for a recruit, his stats were not even bad. His gear though, yeah, that needed work. His tower was a gold mine. Trade goods, some gear, repair kits I forgot to buy, and even a skeleton repair bed. Finally, store could fully repair instead of walking around half broken. The other ruins had smaller loot too. A good guardless katana that I gave to Pia immediately, books, trade goods. And of course, we met the spiders. I wanted to check one last place in the region, an ancient lab. The small spiders were not a big deal if they came one at a time. The big ones were a different story. Those things can rip arms off like it's nothing. Still, we managed, as long as we fought them one by one. And yeah, they were guarding something worth it. The lab was loaded, especially with trade goods. After selling in World Sand, I had around 140,000 cats. I also went back to the outpost to drop off the important loot. While I was there, I dressed Bjorn in a solid heavy armor set we found earlier, and handed him the fragment axe that Stork used to carry. The only problem was I did not find that many research resources. So after a short rest, I decided to head to Leviathan Coast. When we reached the coast, the world felt different. No constant war for every meter of land. No cannibals, no endless ambushes. Just wind, purple sand, open distance. And a lot of wild animals that can still kill you if you get careless. The first thing I found was an armory, and it did not welcome us politely. More spiders. Security spiders this time. And they hit way harder than the normal iron ones. At one point, Horse got left alone and somehow knocked out 2 of them by himself. Absolute beast. He saved us. There were more inside, but slowly, carefully, we cleared them too. I still do not fully understand how we survived that. Luck? Probably. I just hope the spiders were guarding something truly valuable. Inside was a feast. Weapons, a crossbow, some bionics. Even masterwork heavy armor, which went straight to Stork. And an improved Nadachi for me. So yeah, great stop. And I learned that if I want good gear, armories are the place. While we were catching our breath, something huge moved across the edge of my screen. And I froze. A Leviathan. A look at its health. That thing is a walking mountain. And there were more of them nearby too. Now the name of this coast makes sense. We found a bit of research stuff here as well, but when I saw another armory with something like 15 security spiders inside, I decided to come back later. That place would be our grave. A bit later, I even saw a Leviathan fighting something, and whoever it was, they had no chance. The only problem is, I did not expect it come for us next. We swam like our lives depended on it, because they did. It still caught Hobbs and knocked him out with one shot. Not dead, thankfully. But yeah, so much for a peaceful coast. To get into one of the buildings, I even had to use tools. The lock was level 93, so at least carrying those tools around finally paid off. Inside was a lost library, like the one we found in Dead Finger. And it confirmed what I suspected. These libraries are great for research resources and maps. I found a good amount. After that, nothing else was worth the risk. Mostly ruins with random junk and another spider armory I did not feel like dying in. So I did not stay long. Next stop was the Iron Trail. I saw some interesting ruins in that direction, and I really wanted to check them out. The Iron Trail greeted us with a strange silence. Under our feet was cold, blue, glass-like ground, like the whole place was melted and poured again. Old machines everywhere, and you never know which ones are just rusting and which ones are about to stand up. I actually like this region. There were plenty of strong enemies here, iron spiders and broken skeletons. Most of them were alone, so it was perfect training. The only problem is, sometimes they attacked from nowhere, just out of the fog. Great. But the ancient lab was the real problem again. Another pack of security spiders, like 12 of them, plus a skeleton that was actually dangerous. Luckily, they were spread across different floors, so we could pull a couple at a time and fight them. At one point, almost everyone went down, and only Stork and Bjorn kept fighting. But hey, the skills were growing fast. And then I got distracted by something much worse. Inquisitor Seta, with a whole army of Inquisitors and Paladins, decided to wipe my outpost. Yeah, the same Seta Mol warned me about. I knew immediately, even with allied reinforcements and hired squads, I had no chance in a straight fight. So I locked everything inside the buildings and pulled back, hoping they would get bored and leave without looting us. They did. Almost. Everyone left, except Seta's squad, of course. Allies kept sending reinforcements, but those Inquisitors felt unkillable. And then cannibals showed up too, because why not? So I waited for the right moment, hired 2 more squads and hit Seta when he was the most exposed. Looks like for now I can only fight the Holy Nation with tricks. But it worked. We knocked the bastard out. And yeah, his gear was insane. I immediately dragged him to Mol, hopefully she could squeeze something valuable out of him. Saying Mol was happy to see him is understatement. I have a feeling Seta was about to have a very bad time. And without him the southern front should collapse. He was the one holding it together. Hopefully the Shek will take advantage and push in. So now my squad was basically special forces. Harem. Great. But I was worried about the outpost. After this, the Holy Nation might come back and erase it completely. I had to stay alert, and honestly, I started thinking maybe I should abandon it. At least they did not steal anything. And we had a ton of good loot. Loot that is dangerous to wear. I mostly stuck to chainmail, the rest would have to be sold. Anyway, back to the lab. The skeleton inside was waiting for us, but after what I just survived, it did not impress me at all. We dropped it without too much trouble. And the loot was worth it. AI cores, engineering research, books and trade goods. Really juicy. So yeah, ancient labs are absolutely the place to search for advanced research. After that, Iron Trail had nothing else for us except more enemies. Back in World Sound, I sold everything I could from this expedition. I made about 160,000 cats. And I still had leftovers, because the whole town ran out of cats. And on the way back to the outpost, I got great news. The Holy Nation was sending a retribution of God. Yeah, if we survive that, I'm leaving this outpost for good. So when Nomads visited, I bought 2 pack bulls. If things went bad, I wanted to pack up everything I could and run. Even with reinforcements, I was nervous. At first, nothing happened. No retribution. No army on the horizon. And then it hit me. What if they were not coming for my outpost first? What if their priority was to get Seta back? If the Holy Nation attacked Flotsam village while half the ninjas were exhausted and bleeding, I do not think Mol would survive that. And without Flotsam, everything I built up here would collapse. So I threw whatever spare armor I could onto the outpost crew and rushed to Flotsam village. And we arrived just in time. It was a slaughter. The ninjas were fighting hard, but they were not winning. Not against Inquisitors and Paladins like that. So I forced the fight at the HQ entrance, right where the harpoons had a clear line of fire. And those harpoons basically decided the battle. They hit like a truck. They punched through armor. While we tried to hold the line and finish targets up close, the harpoons just kept deleting people. The fight dragged on almost until morning, and we got messed up badly. Someone nearly lost her legs, but somehow she kept them, by pure luck. The important part is Mol was alive. Hard, but alive. A lot of other ninjas were not. It was brutal. Still, at least we saved someone. And at least the Holy Nation did not come to my outpost first. Otherwise, we would already be dead. After that, I went back and spent the next 8 days preparing to leave the outpost for real. Stoking food, selling junk, buying what I could. Getting everyone ready for a nomad life. I upgraded my own kit first, took the Masterwork armor of Stork and bought Masterwork pants. Stork and Bjorn ended up with matching heavy armor sets, just different quality. Hobbs, Horse, Greenfinger and Soulman also got similar heavy armor. I bought Hobbs and Horse good polyarms because we needed armor penetration now. Greenfinger and Soulman kept the Paladin's cross weapons we got from Seta's squad. Great against robots, and they also cut through armor, with short cleavers as side arms. Pia, Knife, Reva and Digna became the ranged group, with matching armor. Pia and Knife had Masterwork pieces, one of them I bought too. For weapons, Pia got a Masterwork double flintlock. Knife took the Masterwork sprint bat. Reva and Digna used the old world bows we found earlier. Sidearms were guardless katanas. To be honest, I did not buy that much. Most of this gear was stuff we had gathered over time. I was just finally putting it all to work. And I packed up the 2 bulls. One carried maybe useful later stuff, the other carried supplies, and yeah, they ate like 4 people. But I still had cats, and I had a bad feeling food would become a constant expense from now on. Still, those bulls were one of the best things I ever bought. When they grow up, they are going to do disgusting things to anyone who gets too close. Burn and Soman also became medics, by the way. And I liked what I was seeing with our stats. The main squad was already hitting around the 50 range in some skills. That felt strong. Even the outpost crew got tougher from all the raids. They were sitting around 20 to 30. After that, I left the outpost. It was a little sad, not gonna lie. Maybe we will come back one day, when the Holy Nation is no longer a threat. But for now, it was time. We were heading for Shek lands. But on the way, I decided to swing by Purple Sands, the Shrieking Forest and Berserker Country. Honestly, none of those 3 regions left a strong impression. We found one ruin with pretty weak loot and the rest was just empty wasteland, with shrieking bandits or berserkers running around. I still have no idea what they even eat out there. So yeah, I will not waste your time on it. The good news is, by now we could handle a full cannibal squad on our own, and the double flintlock really impressed me. In Pia's hands, with her aim, it was doing serious work. Then we took a deep breath and headed into the Fog Islands. On the way, I had to pass through Obedience, a creepy place but also strangely fascinating. The ground is smooth metal, like someone poured it over everything. And out of the mist you see giant hands and ribs sticking up, like their owners were buried alive, and tried to crawl back out. People say it's another scar left by the First Empire. A civilization so advanced it might as well be magic compared to what we have now. They fought some unknown enemy with weapons so destructive that even winning still ended as a disaster. In that time they created behemoths, giant war titans, and when the war ended, the ancients got scared of their own creations. So they chose the easiest solution. They ordered the behemoths to walk into a massive pit and then sealed it from above with a solid layer of metal. That is why the place is called Obedience, because they obeyed. No questions, no rebellion, just one final order and a metal coffin. Places like that are full of old world artifacts, so of course we looked around. We found another ancient lab with security spiders, but with this squad it was much easier than before. And like always, the loot was good, just nothing truly new this time. Soon we left Obedience behind, and the fog around us changed. Thicker, heavier. That was the Fog Islands. But the fog itself is not the danger. The things living inside it are. Fogmen. People say there used to be a hive here. But the queen disappeared, and whatever link kept them together just snapped. Some whisper about a parasite that stays inside and drives them insane. I don't know the truth, I just know this. There is no hive here anymore. There are only fogmen hunting in the mist, dragging people to their death yards before you even realize someone was nearby. And in those death yards, they do rituals. Then they eat you. And they did not make us wait long. A whole crowd of fogmen slammed into us, and I did not even see them coming. That is exactly why I brought the full squad. If I came here with just a couple people, we would have been knocked out and carried away for dinner. But together we survived. Barely, but we did. After wandering through the fog for what felt like forever, we finally reached Mongrel, the only real island of life in this place. Fog and fogmen on every side. It felt like the shinobi ran a lot of things here, and the town was full of outlaws hiding from the world. Makes sense, nobody is coming into the Fog Islands to search for criminals. The downside is obvious too. Fogmen attack the town constantly. We saw that ourselves and ended up helping the guards more than once. And right when I started enjoying the town, someone walked up to me. Beep. I don't think he needs an introduction, but if you somehow do not know him, he was kicked out of the hive for being defective. And since then he has spent his whole life running. He was tired of running. He wanted to become the strongest warrior. The only problem is, he could not do anything. But I could not say no, I liked his spirit. So I took him, and I decided I would train him in martial arts. If he wants to be a warrior, fine. He does not need a weapon. He will become the weapon. I also walked around Mongrel a bit more and joined the Shinobi Thieves for 10,000 cats. Honestly, that might be the easiest alliance I ever made. Their towers are everywhere, beds, trading, nice discounts. Super convenient. After that I sold the extra loot, repaired Bjorn and Stork, stocked up on food and checked the shops. But I didn't find anything interesting. And I have to say, I really liked Mongrel, as much as you can like anything here. It felt calm in its own weird way, and it had a surprising number of good shops. That evening I went bar hopping and hired 3 more recruits, because yeah, experience proved one thing, we really needed people. First was Crumble John and Old Ronin, and I mean ancient. Hunched over, looking like he has been through every war. I kept annoying him with questions until he finally agreed to join, just so I would leave him alone. Then there was Infinite Wing One. This guy had an ego the size of Leviathan. He asked for 100,000 cats. I told him down to 5,000. I still do not know how I pulled that off, but I was not going to argue. Both of them had solid combat skills, so I was happy. And the third was Shrike, a treasure hunter. I figured she and hers would have something to talk about. She was stuck in Mongrel and wanted a group strong enough to live safely without getting eaten by fogmen. Apparently, her brother was not so lucky. She looked at my squad and decided we had a chance, so she joined for free. For roles, I put Crumble John and Wingwang on sabers. Wingwang already had one and I had a decent spare. I also bought them at least some basic gear, so they would not die around the first corner. Nothing amazing, but acceptable. Beep got a toggle mask, pants and some armor too. He still looked ridiculous, but at least he was not naked. For Shrike, I made her a ranged fighter and bought her a good manhunter musket. I really hoped it would pay off. I also gave her some basic gear, nothing special. After spending the night in Mongrel, we decided not to waste time. Next, we would push through Drake and Dwayne. I wanted to explore them too. Then across the islands and finally into the Stand Desert, where the Shek capital, Admak, should be. Drake did not impress me much. It's a huge, empty region, vast and barely populated. The only really interesting thing was how many hive villages we found. Western hive hivers living there, trading like normal people. And yeah, these ones were actually sane. Nobody really knows when the hivers appeared. Some people say they mutated from humans. Others swear they came from somewhere across the sea. Either way, they showed up sometime after the fall of the Second Empire, and now they are just part of the world. The only problem was, the moment they saw Beep, nobody wanted to deal with us. Pig bullying. But fine, we managed. We also found a few dead cat shacks and some settled nomad villages, where we could buy food and animals. And yes, I saw Cornelius, the special god, but no, he was not joining my squad, not today. On Raptor Island we found a nest with a damn mega raptor. At first it looked terrifying, but honestly it was scarier than it was dangerous. We killed it without too much trouble. Compared to the Holy Nation, it was nothing. It also was not guarding anything crazy, just low-level gear. Though I did find a saber that was definitely better than what Wingwang was using, so at least that was something. Wayne, on the other hand. Wayne is where I got stuck for a long time. It was more interesting, but way more dangerous. And the blood rain, that stuff felt like it was melting my eyes. The upside is I hunted big things there. We needed food badly, and big things mean meat and skins to sell. And there were eggs everywhere. The downside is they hit like trucks. Reva was unlucky and lost an arm. Luckily, we had a spare bionic, so we patched her up. Still, traveling there was a constant risk, and honestly, if I was smarter, I could have dealt with most big things from range, before they ever reached us. Wayne also had more high villages, but overall I do not recommend going there. Only if you really have to, or if you come specifically to hunt. By the end of it we were covered in wounds, but we made good cats. And I still had loot left to sell. I was about to head for the islands when I noticed ruins along the coast. And yeah, those were worth it. There was a bunch of good loot and library where we set up camp and waited for our wounds to close, because Wayne was exhausting. I wanted out as fast as possible, and preferably never come back. The islands were actually a relief. First I found a fog tower. Somehow it was full of fogmen and even a fog prince. No idea how they got there. But again, it looked scarier than it really was. I guess big thing training pays off. Inside I found some research resources, some bionics and a masterwork to speak. Not sure if it was even useful at this point, but hey, masterwork is masterwork. On another island I found more ruins with good stuff. Another nice crossbow, more research resources, masterwork pants. Definitely worth the stop. And on the last island I found another hive. When I walked into one of their buildings I got greeted by the queen's guards. So yeah, the West Hive Queen was here. Did I get a conversation with her? Nope. Hivers are weird, that is all I can say. Still, at least they were not fogmen. And I cannot even explain how happy I was to leave Wayne behind. After that place, Stand Desert and the Shek honestly did not sound scary at all. Soon we finally reached Admec. And yeah, this town is a fortress. The only thing ruining the view was a few ruined buildings. But I was not here for sightseeing. I was here for one person. Queen Seta, the stone golem. Luckily, she was in the headquarters. Unlucky, she refused to talk to me. Not the welcome I expected, but honestly, it made sense. The Shek are people who turned war into a religion. Their society is built on the teachings of Kral. Legends say he united scattered tribes and left them one simple truth. Honor is earned only in battle, and a quiet life without glory is worse than death. And he died the same way he lived, in a final fight against 100 warriors. To the Shek, Kral is not just a hero, he is the standard. That is where their brutal castes come from, warriors and servants. If you lose and survive, they can cut your horns. And once you are hornless, you are marked forever. After that, you are treated like a second-class person, expected to serve the throne. And the strangest part is, even the origin of the Shek is unclear. There is a theory going around that they are not a natural race at all. That they are descendants of the ancient enforcers, modified humans from the old empires. And they only became what they are now after the fall of the Second Empire. And in that world, Seta is an anomaly. She's not trying to erase their teachings. She's trying to make them fight smarter, save strengths, plan, choose targets. Stop dying in pointless marches just to look heroic. And she did not inherit power. When the old king, Shek, was leading the kingdom into another glorious suicide march against the Holy Nation, Bayan was the first to speak against him, and Seta stood with Bayan. She challenged Shek and she beat him in combat. But that is why the kingdom is cracking from the inside. Too many Sheks think she is soft. Some want war at any cost, some want to die as heroes. Some turn Kral's teaching into pure fanatism. Either way, this is a place where nobody respects you unless you earned it in blood. Still, I was not leaving empty-handed. I found the one person who was willing to talk to me, Bayan. Of course, they refused an alliance. To the Shek I was a weak outsider with fancy words. But Bayan offered me a chance. If I defeated the Bugmaster, I could prove my strengths. One problem. I had no idea where he was or what he even was. So I tried a different angle. I offered to help with the internal threats, berserkers and the other rock clans, but they waved it off like it was nothing. Fine. I did not care who was right inside their politics. I cared about results. If I proved myself and killed the Bugmaster, the Shek would have no reason to refuse me, and their rock factions would have to be dealt with anyway. That would strengthen the kingdom. And then the Shek would hit the Holy Nation with full force. That is all I wanted. So I made a plan. First, I would deal with the Rock Shek factions, the Band of Bones, the Berserkers and Kral's Chosen, training and clean up at the same time. Then I would go south and search the wild regions. Spider Plains, the Grid, the Crater, Shon and the Rock. If the Bugmaster was anywhere, it would be out there, where there is no real civilization. And if I got lucky, maybe I would find someone on the road who would point me in the right direction. So I did not stay in Admag long. Then I headed towards the exile camp, where the Band of Bones lived. By morning we reached the camp and yeah, nobody was interested in negotiations. We got attacked immediately. And these guys were strong. On top of that, a roaming pack of bone dogs decided to join the party and make everything worse. Still, even though we took a beating, we won. We dropped the whole band, including their leader, Tora the Fearless, the hornless Shek who refused to give up her weapon after getting her horns cut. The funniest part is, there was basically no loot. They were broke. Full-time warriors, part-time beggars. We carried Tora straight back to Admag. The Shek were happy to see her, and they paid us for it. Not bad. Next we hit Berserker village. They were squatting in the ruins of some old town or outpost. A sandstorm was raging, so most of them were hiding inside. That actually helped us. We pulled them out building by building and dealt with them in smaller fights. And their leader, Ghost, I saved him for last. Another hornless exile who never accepted his fate and chose a barbarian lifestyle instead. The problem is, he was good. Really good. He hit like a truck and he beat us up hard. But we still put him down. And then I understood why he was so scary. He had a made-to-warrior blade. Weapons of such quality usually exist in single copies. Yeah, that explains a lot. I gave it to Stork, and Stork's fragment axe went to burn. Other than that, the village had nothing special. But Admok still paid us 10,000 cats for Ghost, so I was not complaining. Last target on the Rock faction's list was Koral's Chosen, Esata's biggest political problem. And they were also the ones who annoyed me the most, because they kept jumping me outside the town like they owned the road. On the way to New Kralia, we ran into another patrol. I played alone. We will see how brave they talk when their leader is gone. When we reached the settlement, I leaned hard on ranged weapons, because our squad was still full of wounds. We cleared about half the camp like that, and then I went in for the final push. And honestly, it felt good. We could actually handle opponents like this now. Flying Bull, their leader, a fanatic of Koral's teachings and a loyal follower of the old King Shager, I only found after the battle, his body. But in the camp we found a few nice weapons and supplies. I gave someone an upgraded Paladin's Cross right away. Back in Admok, I turned Flying Bull in for 30,000 cats. Perfect. So yeah, the first part of the plan was done. Next was the Bugmaster. Before that, I spent one day resting in Admok. Everyone needed it. We were covered in wounds. In the morning, we headed into the Spider Plains, and surprisingly, we did not meet a single bandit. Nice. And we also noticed something else. The Shek did not waste time. They took New Kralia for themselves. The other rock camps went the same way. Stan Desert now belonged to the Shek Kingdom. Spider Plains does not need a long introduction. The name explains it. You sometimes see small groups of skin spiders, and that is basically it. Otherwise, it actually looks pretty peaceful. The only real point of interest I found was the last stand, a big Shek town split into two halves. The barman told me it's where older Shek go to prepare for an honorable death against the Bugmaster. But he didn't tell me where I could find him. At least it confirmed one thing: the Bugmaster was somewhere nearby. So we pushed further south and soon reached the grid. A weird place. Nobody really knows what it was built for. But I did get to watch Beep talking to the girls, and yeah, that little guy has some very strange ideas about the world. He is hilarious. The grid also had a few workshops. The loot was small, mostly research resources, a bit of trade goods and some gear. Nothing crazy. Next was the crater. And one thing was obvious. Something exploded here in the past. Hard. Maybe the grid got hit by it too. And what I did not expect was big things. Tons of them. We barely stepped in and people were already getting injured from constant fights. Honestly, this place was dangerous, even worse than Wayne. But you know what big things mean. X. And X mean cats. At least that part was comforting. Still, it got out of control. The big things were just grinding us down. We also ran out of ammo for the ranger squad, and our backpacks were stuffed with skins, meat and eggs. So I had to retreat back to Admok. And that is where I spent my 100th day, sitting on the roof of a bar, healing. Not the worst way to celebrate. Especially when I looked at my wallet. About 650,000 cats. And we still had at least 50 eggs left in the bags. Plus one bull packed to the limit with meat. We were not starving. If I sold everything, I think I could hit 1 million. Honestly, that felt like an achievement. When we went back out, I only found one lab, and the loot was mediocre, not even an AI core. The other ruins were just ruins, empty. So yeah, I left the crater with great pleasure and headed into Sean. Hopefully, I never have to come back here again. And in Sean, I hit the jackpot. I found a ridiculous amount of loot, tons of research resources and maps, something like 6 lost libraries, weapons too, and not bad ones, plus a mountain of trade goods. And the best part, almost no enemies. A few spiders here and there, but with our ranged group we could deal with them before they surrounded us. After the crater, this felt like a seaside vacation. The place even looked beautiful in its own way. Quiet, open, almost peaceful. The only issue was there was nobody. Not a single soul. Then we found an armory on top of that. Bionics, decent armor, all kinds of stuff. Hobbs got a new armor upgrade. Digna too. And for dessert, there was a lab with 3 AI cores. 3! Plus a ton of other loot. So yeah, everything you are looking at now is what I carried out of this region. And I still left some behind, because at this point I already had enough cuts. Sean alone gave me as many research resources as I had collected in the entire run before that. After that, it was time for a rack, because at this point I was pretty sure the Bugmaster was there. At first it looked calm, just a little blood rain, and then I realized why this place is called a rack. Spiders. An insane amount of spiders. But luckily we could handle them, and the bulls had grown up a bit, and it turns out they hit like trucks. The problem is, every time we wiped one group, 2 more would show up. So we moved forward very slowly, but we moved. And finally we reached it. The Bugmaster's throne. At last. The first floor greeted us with another spider pack. We killed them, but by the end of the fight everyone was badly injured. And upstairs, there he was. The Bugmaster himself, standing by a chest. And here is a twist. He was human. Or at least something that looked human. And yeah, the man was in shape, like really in shape. I wanted to send Beep up for a friendly sparring match. But the poor guy was crawling on the floor, his legs almost got eaten. Martial arts training is rough, what can I say? So I went in personally, with Stork, Burn, Hobbs and Horse. If I sent the weaker fighters, I think he would have cut them down in one hit. And I was right. The guy blocked almost everything, and when he hit back, the damage was insane. Good thing we were in heavy armor. It soaked up most of it. Still, he managed to knock Hobbs out. But together we finally brought him down. It was painful. Horse almost lost his right leg. But the reward was worth it. The Bugmaster had a mate to saber. Nice. And the bounty for his head was even better. The Shek owed us 100,000 cats. I patched him up because I wanted to deliver him alive. Inside the chest, there was an unreal amount of human teeth. Yeah, sick bastard. But what really grabbed my attention was a map. It marked a place in the Ashlands. And from the way it looked, the Bugmaster had been preparing for a long time to fight whatever lived there. So what does it mean? Someone even stronger than him? And what did that thing do to him that made him spend years preparing? It was all very strange, more questions than answers. But I knew one thing. When I get close to the Ashlands, I'm checking that place. Now I only had to carry him back to Admag. And that was easier said than done, because the spiders were still everywhere. Honestly, getting out of Iraq was one of the hardest parts of the whole trip. A few times I really thought we were not making it. At one point they even ambushed us in the water. Yeah, underwater spider ambush. But oh, I was so happy to leave that place behind. What an expedition! Soon we reached Admac, and even the gate guards looked surprised when they saw what I was carrying. They told me to bring him to the HQ. Perfect. I handed the Bugmaster over to Bion, and the guy was genuinely shocked. Apparently, people have been trying to kill this lunatic for hundreds of years. Which raises a small question. What even is the Bugmaster? A normal human cannot live that long. No answers, just another mystery. But the important part, Bayan paid me, and then he sent me to speak with the Seta. Finally. And what happened next was unreal. They did not just thank me, they basically held a whole celebration. They called me king, they called me a warrior of Kral, they named me an honorary invincible. Apparently, there are only 5 invincibles in the kingdom, all part of Seta's personal guard, only sent on the most important missions. And now I was one of them, Invincible Tetsu. Everyone was yelling glory to Battleborn, and I was just standing there like, what is my life right now? And then Seta went even further, she gave me Seta, her daughter. With really good stats too, by the way. So yeah, I have never received this much respect in my entire life. And of course, we became official allies. I told Seta straight up, my goal is to destroy the Holy Nation. They respected that. Since I already dealt with Seta, the Shek took stack and started cleaning up the scattered Holy Nation squads in the south. So yeah, my trick fight actually mattered. Now the last big piece was Voltena in Okran's shield. Seta also gave me permission to command Shek war parties I meet outside the town. That was huge. But before I started a full-scale war, I made another decision. I needed a proper base of operations. Because I had to unload all this loot, and honestly, I was tired of cooking meat on 10 campfires like a caveman. And this time I wanted to finally set up real armor and weapon production. I picked a small valley inside the Fog Islands. There are a lot of those pockets in the fog. You can choose whatever you like. Mongrel was nearby too, so while the ninjas pushed from the north and the Shek pushed from the south, we would hit from the west. The spot had everything, resources, fertile soil, and it was easy to defend if blocked every exit except one. And Fogmen, great training targets. I didn't want to leave any of my main combat squad here, they were already too valuable, so I had to hire new people. Seta became the head of the defense, together with 3 other Shek. I had to run to another Shek town to get one of them, Squin, in the border zone, not far from Admac. On top of that, I recruited about 10 random drifters willing to work for food and protection. And honestly, it was enough, mostly thanks to tech. Still, this whole project took me around 50 days. Research, building, automation, fixing stupid issues, and hunting down blueprints in different towns. In real life it was basically 2 full days of my life. So yeah, I'm going to steal 2 minutes of your attention and explain what I built, quickly. I had enough research resources for most of the important tech, though there is still more to learn. Production-wise, building materials now needed only 1 worker. I did not have enough AI cores to make it fully automatic, but it was still a big upgrade. Ore drills and refineries were fully automated. You only need to hold resources and empty storage. In the station house on the first floor, I placed all the production benches, components, armor, weapons, ammo, medicine, everything. It was constant work. We could already craft specialist gear sometimes, which is great. And if we keep grinding, we should eventually reach masterwork. That would be a real victory. All the gear they crafted while leveling up went straight to outfitting everyone in the outpost. On the second floor I mostly put training dummies and turrets. For farming, I focused on wheat for flour and bread, and hemp for fabric and fuel. I also built 3-step houses. One was for bread production and storage. Food should not be a problem here. Later, I plan to upgrade it and make food cubes with bread and green fruit. The 2nd-step house was empty, just future space. The 3rd one was my I will sort it later storage. Over time, it will probably turn into a full warehouse of boxes. All of this needed a stupid amount of power, so I built around 12 wind generators and a few batteries. Defense was the best part. I placed the gate on the side with the biggest height difference. That way my double-barrel harpoons on the watchtower and another set near the wind generators got a huge damage boost shooting downward. At the same time, the highest tier gate was strong enough that most raids turned into the same routine. They try to break in, we shoot them, and someone repairs the gate from inside. So overall the place ran stable and efficient without me babysitting it every minute. As for my main squad, nothing major changed. I gave the mate to Saber to Crumble John, and I swapped a few backpacks around. Now I just needed my crafters to reach the point where they can make full specialist sets for everyone, and maybe better weapons too. So I could finally get back to the main goal, traveling light and fully stocked, destroying the Holy Nation. The next target was High Inquisitor Valtena, stationed in Okran's Shield. I decided we would hit from the north together with the Flotsam ninjas, take Okran's Fist on the way, and then sweep Arm of Okran and Okran's Volley clean. So I gathered a small ninja army and we marched on Okran's Fist. When we arrived, it turned out to be a small fortified settlement. Honestly, the defenses looked kinda weak. The only thing that worried me was the crossbowmen on the walls. But at least they were not harpoons. So we went in. I'll be honest, my attack was not coordinated at all. Total chaos. I tried to keep everyone together, but everyone kept running off like idiots the second someone swung a sword. Still, even in the mess, we kept cutting through the defenders. What I did not expect was how many were hiding inside the buildings. That slows things down. The good news is the bulls were amazing. Seriously, they were doing work. At this point, I was starting to think I could build a whole squad of just bulls. Local cavalry. But yeah, we cleared the place. Most important thing, nobody died. Then we just finished off the survivors. The loot was garbage, they can keep it. I only grabbed a few blueprints, just in case. And while we still had momentum, I pushed straight onto Okran's Shield. Now, that was a real fortress. Huge. And split into 2 sections. Weirdly, that helped us. Because the defenders were spread out, I could fight them in smaller groups instead of one massive blob. Still, there were plenty of Inquisitors, and they were a problem sometimes. Once we secured the entrances, I started clearing one side. This time I managed to control the squads better, keep everyone close, stop them from scattering. And it made a big difference. We cleared the first half, then moved to the second. And that is where I saw him, High Inquisitor Valtena. The moment I spotted him, I focused everything on him. He tried to hold his ground, but he had no chance against that many fighters collapsing on him at once. I grabbed him and patched him up. I wanted him alive. After that, it was just a clean-up. We turned Okran's Shield into a meat grinder. I am just glad everyone survived. Now it was time to bring Valtena back to Maul. On the way, we had to clear a couple of holy farms too. The moment those idiots saw Inquisitor carried like a sack of grain, they tried to stop us. Maul was happy, as always. She told me she would loosen his tongue. And that is when we learned something important. Phoenix was hiding in Blister Hill, the capital and the most heavily fortified town in the Holy Nation. But hitting Blister Hill would take real preparation. This is not some little outpost, and it would help to weaken them first. Destroy their mines, free prisoners from slave camps, and take the remaining towns. And then, not even a day later, something happened that surprised me. Okran's fist got taken by the United Cities. I did not expect that. Looks like they marched in from Bast, and now they were controlling that part of the arm of Okran. And I was not exactly happy about it. But they did not push further, probably because Okran's valley was suddenly full of loathsome ninja patrols, and the ninjas were not giving that land back. Still, at least World's End probably never has to worry about the Holy Nation again. Okran's shield, on the other hand, went to the Shek. Perfect. Next, I wanted to help the Shek secure the border zone and Skinner's Row, so nothing blocks their path to Okran's shield and the front line stays stable. After that, I plan to check Okran's Gulf too and deal with any remaining Holy Nation forces there. And this time I brought support. A few squads of 100 guardians. Skinner's Row was not very special, it was just a big, rocky desert. But we did find Narcos Trap, a Holy Nation military outpost built around the only known ancient lab on their territory. They hate all technology so much it's almost funny. So instead of forbid it and forget it, they built walls around the lab, stationed a garrison and called it Narcos Evil Tower. Yeah. In their face, Narco is a dark demon goddess, the opposite of Okran, their Lord of Light. And they use its story to justify a lot of ugly things. They say women are made in Narcos' image, so by default they are suspicious and easy to corrupt. Skeletons get it even worse, the Holy Nation treats them like Narcos agents, so most of the time they just destroy them on sight. They even have their own stories where Narco is some kind of skeleton leader, and Okran is a savior of humanity from the Second Empire, ruled by skeletons. And yeah, the funniest detail, Narco is just Okran backwards. Rumors say there was once one god, Chitrin. Then Chitrin sacrificed himself to end a great calamity and was reborn as two Hulks. Okran, the god of day and warmth, and Narco, the god of night and cold. Balance and all that. Of course, our talk with the defenders was short. And the Inquisitor in charge, Tarlan, he slept through all the attack. Amazing leadership. Of course, we broke into the Evil Tower. There was not a crazy amount of loot inside, but it was still worth it. And once Narcos Trap fell, we knocked out the holy mines in the region too. The guards were not that hard to handle, and every time we found slaves, we freed them. Some of them even chose to join us. I was fine with that. I kept sending them to my little town, we always needed hands, at the very least for turrets. After that we moved into the border zone, probably the most famous region. And also the region where bandit life really thrives. We basically rolled over the local gangs so they would not block the Shek advance. And honestly, some of these same bandits were attacking my town sometimes, so it was two problems solved at once. We cleared the ninja tower first. There were a lot of them, and inside I found a surprise. A made to ninja blade. Not bad at all. After that we took down the Dust King. These guys even built their own little fortifications, like they were serious. And it paid off. When I returned to the legendary hub, the Shek were already there, and they even built a new bar. Hopefully they rebuild the rest of the town too. In the end, most of the border zone and Skinner's Row shifted under Shek control, and tech hunters moved into Narcos Trap. Next I headed into Okran's Gulf, not a very special region either. The main thing is the land there is very fertile, like most Holy Nation territory. And it borders the Fog Islands. And my town. Stack here was already taken by the Shek, but I wanted to wipe out every remaining Holy Nation outpost in the region. They were too close to my base, and it was good training. By this point, it was starting to feel routine for us. We were fighting so often that nobody even cared what they talked about anymore. We would be cracking jokes mid-battle like this was normal life. One thing I really enjoyed noticing, their squads were hungry. Literally, they looked weaker, like the destroyed farms finally started to matter. We even found a few military bases, and surprisingly, we cleared them with just our own squad. No reinforcements. Probably because the bulls were carrying half the fights. The only downside, Beep lost an arm. And only then did I realize something awkward. For the first time in a while, the Holy Nation was actually doing something useful here. They were holding back the Fogmen. I saw it with my own eyes, a ruined town to the north, completely overrun by Fogmen already. So, after we wiped the Holy Nation forces in Okran's Gulf, Fogmen started spreading into the region fast. I did not expect them to push so far out of the fog, but they did. That made me nervous about rebirth, so I stopped delaying it. In rebirth there were a lot of them overall, but they attacked in small groups. Like, they could not even imagine someone sane would actually invade the place. So we handled it without too much trouble. Nobody from my squad even went down. And once the slaves understood what was happening, they joined us. They tried to escape, they fought back, they grabbed whatever they could. We freed dozens of people. Honestly, some of them were probably survivors from Bust. Soon it was over. Rebirth was cleared. At this point, I had a feeling Lord Phoenix was sweating under his throne, because the Holy Nation was down to one last region, Okran's Pride, their green paradise. Before the final attack, I returned to my town to rest and restore. On the way, I passed through Wend, that narrow canyon with a river between Rebirth and the Hidden Forest. And there I found another lost library complex. But the real surprise was down in the water. The Armor King. He was a skeleton, and apparently he opened his shop almost 1,000 years ago. Yeah, 1,000. And the armor he sold was insane. So much masterwork gear. If I found him earlier, I would have been wearing this stuff for half the run, but now my crafters were already pumping out special gear constantly, so I decided to rely on my own production long term. So back in town, I upgraded everyone I could. I got a full masterwork heavy armor set, except the chainmail. My other melee fighters got almost the same sets, just specialist quality. Weapons were already at least Edge 1 across the squad. I also gave Crumble John and Wing One long cleavers, because sabers just were not doing it for me anymore. For the ranged fighters, I handed out specialist Empire Wheel Locks. Really good muskets. Plus blue guardless katana as the side arms. Beep got a small upgrade too, nothing crazy. And yeah, I finally gave him a new arm. We still needed more crafting time to fully outfit everyone perfectly, but I didn't want to sit at home for another month. Once my crafters finish proper light armor for the ranged squad, I'll hand those out later. But even now, we looked way more serious. It was time. Okran's Pride. I decided we'd hit Bad Teeth first, so the Shek could take it right away. Then we'd march on Blister Hill, destroying holy farms along the road. And no, Beep wasn't coming with us. I sent him on a secret mission. I'll tell you about it later when the time is right. I have big plans for that little guy. I just bring one small Shek squad with me, just in case. And yeah, that turned out to be a good call, because we ran into a lot of Holy Nation patrols on the way and had to keep clearing them. When we arrived, I realized Bad Teeth wasn't some tiny town. It was big. Proper walls, proper defenses. I was hoping the garrison wouldn't be massive. We attacked through the lower gate and honestly, we pushed in way easier than I expected. Like a knife through butter. The town was spacious and that helped us again. The defenders just couldn't gather fast enough to overwhelm us. And I got even luckier. There was a mercenary squad inside the town. I paid them on the spot to join the fight. After that, it was just clearing buildings. So I didn't stay, I moved on toward Blister Hill. The Shek could finish cleaning up here. On the way, I kept burning through holy farms and patrols. And there were a lot of them in Ocar's Pride. A lot. Blister Hill looked intimidating, even from outside. They had inner walls like a real capital. Phoenix was definitely behind those walls. We arrived at night and I didn't want to waste that advantage, so we attacked immediately. We cleared the gate defenders first, then started wiping the turret crews off the walls, while my ranged squad supported the Shek pushing deeper into the town. After that, we moved carefully. No scattering, no chasing, just one tight group. So we reached the Phoenix HQ and no, I wasn't insane enough to rush straight inside. Instead, I cleared and captured the building next to it. From there, my ranged fighters could shoot into the courtyard, while the melee squad guarded them. Then I started pulling the defenders out. And even like this, it was rough. They caused a ton of problems and almost wiped us more than once. But the muskets were doing beautiful work. Eventually, we cleared Phoenix Guard. And you know what Phoenix was doing this whole time? Sleeping. Sleepy Lord Phoenix. His towns were falling one by one and this guy was taking a nap. So yeah, we gave him a very rude wakey wakey and jumped him all at once. He was strong, no joke. Other defenders tried to interfere and Phoenix actually managed to knock me out. But it didn't matter, we brought him down. He had a May2 Paladin's Cross, which I immediately gave to Greenfinger, and his H3 went to Solon. I patched Phoenix and carried him with me, because I have a final idea. And yes, I sat on the throne for a minute. Just one. Alright, time to leave. On the way back, I made my gift to the Fogmen. I tied Phoenix to one of their poles. It didn't take long. They swarmed in like they could smell him from miles away. He didn't get to run, he didn't get to preach, he didn't get to cleanse anything. This was the kind of end he deserved, after Bast, after my family. Finally. And when it was over, all that was left was his woods, just like the Holy Nation itself. We went back to town, rested a bit and treated our wounds. While I was dealing with Phoenix, the Shek and the Flotsam ninjas didn't sit still either. They split Ocar's Pride between them. But Tease went to the Shek, Blister Hill went to the Flotsam ninjas, and so did Rebirth. I was also glad to see what the Shek did with the Holy Mines. They turned them into military outposts. Not bad. And the former capital of the Holy Nation? It was calm. No crazy purges, no torches, no sermons. People were just walking around, shops were open, life was normal again. Same with Rebirth, the old slave camp turned into a small settlement. It even had shops and bar. So yeah, I can say it now. The Holy Nation was finally destroyed. I could finally breathe, at least a little. Because the United Cities expansion started to worry me. Seta had signed peace with them a while ago, so she could focus on the Holy Nation. But once the Holy Nation fell, the world changed. Suddenly, the Shek had no big enemy left. And I was almost sure the war with the United Cities would come back sooner or later. The Shek don't really retire. And the Flotsam ninjas are hardcore anti-slavers. After gaining strengths like this, I really doubt they would tolerate the United Cities nearby for long. So yeah, Another war was coming. It felt inevitable. And honestly, I wasn't okay with the United Cities eyes, same as my father. As I know, the United Cities rose from the leftovers of the old world, sometime after the fall of the Second Empire. Oasis towns survived, grew rich, and turned into a new empire where the value of life is measured by one's wallet. Officially, Emperor Tengu sits at the top, but the real power is the nobles, lords and ladies with too many cats and not enough empathy. Each one runs their town like a private kingdom. Their own rules, their own taxes, their own samurai, their own entertainment. People whisper stories about nobles hunting peasants for sport. I believe those stories. And the samurai are not knights. They're just a tool, order, suppression, whatever the lord paying them wants. Then there is the Traders Guild. Rich partners, who can choke a town without firing a single bolt. Their leader, Longen, he doesn't need an army. He has contracts, cats and leverage. And under all of it is the darkest foundation – slavery. Slave markets, mines, farms, caravans. In the United Cities, your worth is measured in cats, and poverty turns into crime real fast. So of course, people fight back, escaped slaves, rebels, whole settlements that choose danger over living in a cage, and the anti-slavers. After what I saw in Holy Nation slave camps, I couldn't ignore it anymore. And I knew the United Cities were even more creative with this system. Also, I still had a personal score to settle with Tengu. Exile isn't something you just forgive. I knew that far to the southeast, somewhere in Stobbs Gamble, there was a town named Spring, where the anti-slavers were based. Reaching it would be a journey on its own. But I wanted to speak with them, hear their plans. They have been fighting this war for years, and if I was going to hit the United Cities someday, I needed allies who actually knew what they were doing. And honestly, after all these wars, I also wanted to travel again, explore, clear my head. So I decided to head towards the spring and travel along the edge of United Cities territory on the way. Iron Valleys, Deadlands, the Black Desert, Grey Desert, the Eye, Venge. And from there into Stobbs Gamble. Yeah, a real trip. Before leaving, I did one last thing. I went back to those two armories on the Leviathan coast, the ones full of security spiders. And I am telling you right now, they almost wiped us. Those spiders are no joke, even with specialist gear. Inside there was a mountain of masterwork armor in every style you can imagine. For me, it wasn't that important anymore, but if you ever go there yourself, now you know. It's a jackpot, if you survive. Back in my town, I finally upgraded the ranged squad properly. Same style as the melee sets, just the lighter versions. All specialist quality. Then we restocked food and supplies because I had no idea when we'd be back. Alright, time to move out. First I went through the Iron Valleys. It's a weird looking region and not much is known about it. The main danger here wasn't enemies, it was the climate. Constant acid rain. Luckily, our gear protected us well enough. The loot was nice though. One armory had a bunch of masterwork armor. Not really what I needed. And the Deadland workshop had research resources and other useful junk. Right after that came the Deadlands. Even more hostile. Even more dead. But in practice, it was the same vibe. Same armories and workshops too, just way more of them. But place I remember most was a reprogramming workshop. I walked in expecting a fight, and instead I got greeted by 2,000 broken skeletons who decided I was their master. Plot twist. They started guarding me. And honestly, they were pretty useful in fights, and you can repair them. The only problem is, I'm pretty sure they attack literally anyone they see. So yeah, that was going to be dangerous if I wasn't careful. Then I found Black Desert, a town of only skeletons, which makes sense, because the acid terrain never stops here. Humans have no business living in this place. I guess this is where they hid from the Holy Nation. But the real treasure was outside the town, the scrap house. That place sells an absurd amount of good weapons. You could arm an entire army. And the best part, they sold AI cores. So yeah, I bought them. I also sold all my junk, grabbed a few blueprints and moved on. The Black Desert and the Grey Desert had basically nothing interesting. Just polluted wastelands. But in the eye, I noticed a crashed structure in the distance. Another left over from the First Empire. It looked like a fallen ring-shaped satellite. And based on what Stork and Burn said, it used to be a weapon. What bothered me was something else they said. They said there was another one that still works. I didn't understand what they meant. I tried to look past the sandstorm for anything else, but there was nothing, just sand. Then I entered Wench, and I immediately understood. Lasers were firing down from the sky. If one hits you, you are just done, fried on the spot. That was the other eye they warned me about. The only good news is that at night it stops. So nights here are actually safe. Of course, the region still had other problems. Troll masters were roaming around with their trolls, headless skeletons. Luckily, they were not very dangerous. And we actually found some good stuff here. We found an old control tower occupied by scavengers. Their leader had a made weapon. Sadly, it was completely useless. But the tower had other supplies and valuables, and later tech hunters would move in after we left. Then we found the Tower of Abuse. Looks like two main troll masters lived there. Funny timing though, my troll bodyguard disappeared just a few minutes earlier. If they stayed, maybe I could vault in and talk. Instead, we cleared the tower the normal way. I don't think the troll masters even understood what was happening. The loot was decent. A mate to heavy polyarm and a mate to holy saber. I wasn't in love with either, but I took them anyway. And on the third floor, I found a soldier bot in a cage. Agnew. He was strange. Like he couldn't really speak normally, but the moment I freed him, he joined me. And I mean, the guy had 50 strengths. That's not a recruit, that's a weapon. So I gave him gear from one of the troll masters and decided I'd train him in martial arts too, like Beep. By the way, Beep is going to love this. Those two become real friends. The tower also had more good loot for sale and research resources. And yeah, more AI cores. After we left, tech hunters moved into this tower too. And honestly, that was it for Wench. Next was Top's Gamble. And I actually like this region. It's not friendly at all, but it's insanely atmospheric. Rusting ships, acid lakes, volcanic ash falling from the sky, and volcanoes on the horizon. It looks like the world is still dying in real time. The region is also named after a massive skeleton, we will find him later. We were getting close to spring now, but the wildlife here matched the mood. First we saw creepy land bats, and then a black gorilla showed up. Also, while I was exploring, we found something weird. A secret drug farm. Nobody there, only security spiders. They were producing stuff we didn't need at all, so we left it. Then later I found some ruins, started admiring the loot and almost got jumped by a king gorilla. Of course. Luckily, I backed off in time, and then we fought it properly together. It still almost killed someone, but we won. After wandering around a bit more, we finally found Spring, the anti-slavers' base. They built it up on a mountain top, like they were not hiding from bandits, but from the whole world. And honestly, they kind of were. Inside their headquarters there were a lot of people, and the first thing I noticed was almost nobody had a weapon. Turns out the anti-slavers specialize in martial arts, because if you get taken as a slave, they can strip everything from you except your fists. It's brutal, but it makes sense. And that's where I met their leader, Tin Fist, a living legend, a martial arts monster, and also a skeleton. Not gonna lie, I did not expect a skeleton to care this much about human problems, but he did. I told him straight, I wanted to destroy the Traders Guild. And yeah, the man had a sense of humor, which was somehow even weirder coming from a metal face. But then he got serious. His advice was simple: don't smash your head into the wall, fight smart. Start by destroying the slave markets, farms and mines. Kill the masters and mistresses running them. If you do that, the towns lose food and resources. They start choking. That's exactly why the slavers always call the anti-slavers terrorists. Because their methods don't just hurt slavers, they hurt everyone, to be honest. That was the price, and I was ready to pay it. Tin Fist also said something interesting. After that, some towns might revolt on their own. Others will need help. And only then you go for the top of the Traders Guild. He also told me to visit Big Bo in Black Scratch. He said she could help me. Sounds like a plan. After that, I spoke with Gray, the recruiter. I decided to officially join them. He even mentioned my work against the Holy Nation and accepted me without much hesitation. And that's when it hit me. The road back to the United Cities was closed. My homeland was now my enemy. If I ever return to Bast, it will be after I change the entire United Cities. The United Cities are not only in the Great Desert up north, they also control the south coast, Bonefield, the South Wetlands, and the Hook. Down there they have 3 towns: cat-lon, Steady, and Drifter's Last. I figured they would be weaker than the Great Desert because they are cut off from the main United Cities lands. Spoiler, I was very wrong. Down there they also have slave infrastructure, at least 1 slave market, a manhunter base, and a slave farm. My hope was simple: destroy those and maybe the towns would rise up. That's where I'd start. And on the way I'd explore the regions around them: Flat's Lagoon, Shem, the Burning Forest, and the Swamp. Then, after dealing with the southern United Cities, I'd loop back through Bonefields, Fishman Islands, Cheater's Run, Royal Valley, and Grey Shelf. That was the rough plan. Time to move. Flat's Lagoon greeted me with something I hadn't seen in a while: beauty. Sure, there were bones sticking out of the ground, but no acid lakes, no lasers, no nightmares. Birds were literally singing. And in the distance, a town stood on a huge platform. Strange, but kind of beautiful. Tech hunters ran the place. The town was small, but really cozy. Lots of shops and even 2 bars. You could even buy a little house here if you wanted. Honestly, after everything I just been through, Flat's Lagoon felt like a vacation. Next was Shem, and somehow it was also beautiful. A sandy oasis. I swear, I felt like I walked into paradise compared to the dead zones I'd been living in. Out there I found a smuggler's bar in the middle of nowhere. A great place to rest, eat and patch up. I also found a settled nomad camp where you could buy animals. Other than that, mostly empty wilderness. Then I checked the burning forest, and yeah, it wasn't paradise anymore. But there isn't much to say. It's a forest. It rains acid, so everything is burning. Very poetic. At night you can't see anything and there are blood spiders in places. But we did find another ancient lab with decent loot. Sadly, no AI cores. And then we reached the swamp, and our speed dropped to 0. We had to move carefully. First, because you can't see anything. Second, because the swamp has syndicates for every flavor of crime. I kept finding small villages, and most of them belong to different swamp gangs. I also met a new creature out here, swamp turtles. Weird tall guys. And of course, blood spiders were not just around. Sometimes they were living inside labs like they paid rent there. Luckily, they were not a serious threat to our squad anymore. Still, the swamp had a vibe. And if you want to do shady business, this is the place. In the center was Shark, the only real town in the area, with the legendary bar, the dancing skeleton. But the moment I walked in, someone from the hounds noticed me. They ran the place and they wanted a fee. Now I could have broken every single jaw in that bar. But I didn't come here to start a whole new war over a few hundred cats. So I paid, kept my head down and didn't stay long. I had bigger goals. But of course, the swamp didn't let me live peacefully. Besides the syndicates, there were two more normal bandit factions here. The Red Sabers and the Swamp Ninjas. They were fighting each other. And somehow we walked right in the middle of it. Perfect sandwich. We fought our way out and not far away I found their HQs. First we hit the Red Sabers and their leader, Ark. There were a lot of them, but their training was not impressive. We didn't spend long on them. What did surprise me was Ark's weapon, a made-to-horse chopper. Yeah, I was not expecting that from a swamp bandit boss. Then we took down the swamp ninjas and their leader, Shade. Their HQ was right on the border between the swamp and the south wetlands, exactly where we were heading. And honestly, I doubt it took even a few days before the local syndicates grabbed everything those bands left behind. One more nice bonus. Now that I was allied with the anti-slavers, they would help defend my town from slaver raids. And that was great news, because those slaver traders were showing up way too often. And finally, we reached the southern United Cities, in the South Wetlands. It was basically the swamp on easy mode. Same idea, just instead of 1000 puddles, you get one giant one. And there was only one place I cared about here. The slave market. We hit it without wasting a second. No reason to let them prepare. And honestly, they look completely unready. There was basically one borrowed guard at the entrance, so I didn't overthink it. We spread out and rushed in, cutting down anyone in our way. The biggest danger was the harpoons. There were a lot of them, like way too many. But little by little we cleared the place and silenced them. And I could feel my own skills improving too. At one point I took down 2 guards alone without much trouble. Nice. Once we cleared the main buildings, it was basically over, except the slave market master. That coward had been hiding in his noble house the whole time, so we kicked the door in. And yeah, his personal guards were a different level. Heavy armor, good weapons, the whole I get paid to kill peasants package. It took time, but we ground them down. The slave master didn't survive the visit. And that's how we spent our 200th day, sitting in the local bar with the survivors of that massacre. Honestly, not a bad anniversary. But we were not staying, we moved on into the Hook, a surprisingly lively coastal region. First stop was a Manhunter base, and that went way too smoothly. I swear, those guys were weaker than cannibals. Even better, rebel farmers showed up and helped distract them. Thanks, boys. Soon after, we reached the slave farm, and this place was fortified properly. You could tell these were professionals. Holy Nation slave camps didn't even come close. But the best part, the moment the slaves realized what was happening, they started freeing themselves and running. Perfect. And of course, we didn't forget the slave mistress and her guard. She didn't walk away from that. I even found a Meitu Wakizashi on her. Nice. Just like Teen Fist said, this started changing the region fast. Clown Steady flipped to the Empire Peasants. And honestly, it's a cool town. If it had a full moat around it, it would be perfect. But still, very nice. They even took over the slave market too, which is now used simply for living and trading. Drifter's Last was harder. It needed a little encouragement. There was still a noble there, Lady Mary, and she had no intention of backing down. At first it went okay, but the defenders in this town were insane. I'm not kidding, some of them had stats close to 100. They were more dangerous than the Holy Nation. We almost got crushed. And the harpoons again. There were so many that we had to hole up inside a building and play defense just to survive. After we seen them down, I decided to rush her house and just kidnap her, before they overrun us. Then we had to fight our way out. Yeah, that was close. For the first time in a long time, I had to set up a real camp just to recover. And that's where Lady Mary's story ended. By morning, the town had flipped. Drifter's Last now belonged to the free traders. The slave farm became a trade outpost, and the Manhunter base got taken over by a mercenary guild. So, South Wetlands fell under Empire Peasants' control, and the hook went to the free traders. Nice. Our job here was done. Next I went to check cat-lon in the bone fields, a dry plain full of scattered bones, and a lot of dangerous wildlife. Cat-lon also had to be taken by force, and calling it easy would be a joke. We dropped maybe 10 guards and pushed straight into Lord Shiro's house and killed him. It felt like this last UC town in the south was already really weakened. And I have to say, cat-lon was beautiful. For some reason, every town down south looked better than the last one. I'd take a place like that for myself, not gonna lie. I gave the locals time to sort things out and went exploring the region around it. And what I found out there made absolutely no sense. And this was only the beginning of a whole chain of strange discoveries. First I found Morn, another ruined town, mostly controlled by tech hunters now. And there was this abandoned building, so of course I went inside. And I almost got my face eaten. There was a great white gorilla in there. I reacted fast enough that nobody died, but the fight was still serious. We took it down with 5 melee fighters while the ranger squad worked from behind. Later, the barman told me the locals trapped it inside because nobody knew how to deal with it. Not the worst plan, honestly. And when I showed him the great white claw afterward, yeah, he was very happy to see it. Then came the second surprise. An old prison. I expected bandits or spiders or maybe another skeleton. What I did not expect was gorilla bandits, with huge arms, hunched backs and martial arts like they were born in a dojo. Kung Fu gorillas. Great. And they had a leader too. Gorilla. He was strong enough to knock out Stork, which almost never happens. But he also had a Meitu exile blade. Perfect. That one went straight to burn. When I returned to cat-lon, I got even better news. The town declared independence. And they renamed themselves cat-lon. Incredibly creative guys, really. And with that, the southern United Cities basically stopped existing. I have a feeling Emperor Tengu was waiting somewhere far away. As for me, it was time to go back to spring, catch my breath and decide what we do next. On the way, I decided to check Fishman Island. And the island greeted us with an elder big thing at the entrance. That thing almost tore us apart. The damage was insane. But somehow everyone kept their limbs, barely. The moment we stepped onto the island, my squad started telling stories. You know the type. Legendary sword, cursed blade, demon weapon, the usual. I was rolling my eyes until Shrike said one small detail. Apparently, a giant fishman wields it. And that's when I realized the weirdness wasn't over yet. Yeah, she wasn't lying. The whole island was full of fishmen. Just fishmen. A whole mutant species living their best swamp life. The good news is they were not very strong. The bad news is there were a lot of them. They even had a town and we had to clear it out. Then in an abandoned lab we walked into a little ambush. On the third floor I met the king of this place. The king gurgler. And I don't even know how to describe this thing. Half crab, half bug, half nightmare. Like someone built a creature out of leftovers and pure disrespect. Luckily, he wasn't that tough. His escort was bigger trouble than he was. But they were still not on our level. And on him I found it, a Made to Combat Cleaver. So that was a legendary sword. And I also grabbed his head. Apparently it sells for 60,000 cats, which is ridiculous, but I am not complaining. The best part though, 3 AI cores. Finally, time to leave this island before it grows another boss. After that we went through Cheater's Run. From what I understood, this coastline can be a road towards the Ashlands, the place Bugmaster was looking at. But for me that was still not yet. Cheater's Run is a great place if you enjoy fighting iron spiders in large quantities. And of course it couldn't just be spiders. I saw a little village, walked into a building and ran into the police. Police! Why not firefighters? Why not librarians? I don't know, I'm done asking questions. They were strong too. Soldier bots, like Agnew. And then more poured in from other buildings. Not 5, not 10, like 30. They beat us up badly. Felt like they have been standing there since the Second Empire, just waiting for someone to open the wrong door. And yeah, there were more places like that. Then I found another set of ruins, and I still wasn't ready for what happened next. Skeletons, wearing human skin. At first they acted friendly, calm, polite, right until the moment they decided they wanted to touch my skin. And that's when everything turned into a horror story. The fight was chaos. They were strong, they are skeletons after all. And as if that wasn't enough, a pack of iron spiders was also moving in. At one point they grabbed Digna and shoved her in some machines and started peeling her. I barely got her out in time. We somehow quickly went from beautiful views to skin ripping. A lot of injuries, but we survived. And thankfully that was the last place in Cheater's Run, because I was done. But if you think Royal Valley was calmer, it was not. This place belonged to Highworks, but not the friendly western ones. These ones had one hobby, catching anyone made of meat and feeding them to their king. And trust me, I'll get to their king in a second, because my brain also refused to accept what it was. We had to fight our way through patrols, and these hires were seriously strong. Then we reached their town, if you can even call it that. We started getting hit before we even got close. And the only way we survived was by never letting them swarm us. But even then, some of their elite drone guards had stats close to 100. Yeah, these guys were not weaker than the Holy Nation or the UC, not even close. Then we pushed into the town. And I am glad we had already dropped a huge number of them on the approach, because inside it turned into a long grind. There was a queen, and we had to kill her. After that, it felt like the whole region started pouring in. One squad after another. We'd finish one fight and then another group would arrive. Finish that and another one. It went on forever. Everyone was on the edge, barely holding together. The only reason we survived was simple: the moment we got even 1 second of breathing room, we patched wounds and kept going. On the bright side, Hobbs got a mate to polyarm from the queen. Not bad. And then I thought it was over. It wasn't. A giant robotic thing showed up, and that's when I understood what they meant by the king. This was their king, a crimper. A massive maintenance skeleton that looks like a gorilla. If a gorilla was built to lift buildings. 250 strengths. 250! I stared at the number like it was a joke. Somehow, our armor held up enough to keep us alive. But the bulls almost died instantly and Hobbs nearly lost a leg. That fight was long. The ranged squad saved us, no question. But after all that, it didn't even drop an AI core. I didn't stay, I was running low on supplies and I could feel my sanity leaving my body. So one more region left, Grey Shelf. And the funniest part? After we left, Fogman moved into that whole town and the surrounding area. Which is not what I expected to see outside the Fog Islands. But I guess killing the queen really does change things. Grey Shelf was exactly what it sounds like. Grey, white, empty. The only interesting thing I found was a couple armories that had been taken over by the Southern Hive. And one of them almost flattened us. We survived by pure luck. Even the gorillas nearby got involved. It honestly felt like this was the last remnants of the Southern Hive, because everywhere else Fogmen were already spreading in. At that point, I was unbelievably happy to return to spring. Because what started like a vacation turned into straight-up horror. I had to send a small squad back to my town to resupply and dump loot, because we were overloaded again. And yeah, I had so many research resources that they didn't even fit in the research bench storage. But that meant one thing: I could queue up almost every technology that was available. Back in spring, I also decided to distribute the meta weapons. Hobbs got the heavy polyarm, Someone got the combat cleaver, Crumble John got the horse chopper, Wing One got the holy saber. We'll see how they perform. I also grabbed a set of Masterwork Empire wheellocks for the ranged squad. The accuracy is way better than specialist versions. And I paired them with H-Type 1 Guardless Katanas as sidearms. Overall, it was a massive upgrade. After that, we decided to head to Black Scratch and meet Bo. On the way, I also wanted to pass through the last few regions in the area. The Crags, the Pits, Green Beach, Stobbs Garden, then Wanted Zone, and finally the Outlands where Black Scratch sits. And I will only mention the most interesting parts. I'm going to skip the usual lost armories, libraries and labs with same old loot we've already seen 100 times. The funny part is, we barely left spring when we saw a Leviathan fighting land bats. And of course I thought, yeah, we can take that. Our ranged squad started shooting it while it was distracted. And I am not gonna lie, the damage was crazy. Those Empire wheellocks were doing work. But the Leviathan was a walking mountain. It just refused to die. And the reward? One pearl worth 12,000 cats. So yeah, huge risk, medium lunch cats. Moving on. Honestly, the cracks didn't feel that different from Stop's gamble. Less ash, same mood. The main enemies here were skeleton bandits. Humans pretending to be skeletons. I kept thinking they would probably get along great with those skeletons we met earlier, who were pretending to be humans. And now I know why there were so many of them. Their HQ was here, Iron House. They attacked us on sight, so we cleared the place. They were not that strong and the new weapons made a big difference. On the third floor we found their leader, Elder. And this one was an actual skeleton, which explained a lot. It felt like he was the one who filled their heads with all that "we are skeletons now" nonsense. On him I found a made to ringed saber, and even an AI core. Nice. Then we entered the pit. Visually it wasn't a special either, just different terrain. But the vibe felt weirdly calmer, less miserable. This is where we first ran into crab raiders, a whole faction of lunatics who worship and tame crabs. And I'll be honest, it's hard to stay angry when someone is screaming about crab glory while petting a crab. They were not always hostile either. Sometimes they just watched us like we were the weird ones. On the southern shore we found a lonely tower. It looked like it was guarding another path toward the Ashlands. So I decided to test ourselves. The first problem was the harpoons. They started shooting us from far away. Luckily, their aim was not great, so we survived the walk in. Inside were skeleton legion soldiers, and some of them had stats close to 100. Yeah, these guys are tough. But we managed. And I decided that's enough bravery for today. We were not going deeper. On the eastern coast we found an actual settlement, a crab town. And to my surprise, they didn't attack. There was even a bar and shops. You could also buy an entire army of crabs, but only after they give you a full lecture on crab care. I didn't stay long, I didn't want to get involved in crab politics. After that we reached Green Beach, which, by the way, is not very green. Not even close. It's a nice place if you ignore one detail. The water is acid. Also, there were crabs everywhere. And another crab raider village, and that's all. Stop's garden was more interesting. First thing we saw was a tower, and inside were something like 40 elder blood spiders. We won, but it was painful. Those things hit hard, and their stats were no joke. Heavy armor saved us. On the way out, we ran into another faction. Rivers. Bandit slavers who think they deserve to replace the United Cities. And the worst part is they use slaves for war, not work. Yeah, great people. Soon after we found Ark, a strange structure and their main HQ. At first they didn't look hostile, their leader even came out to greet us. Velamon. And then I realized what was happening. He wasn't welcoming us. He was picking us. He wanted to turn us into slaves. So we killed him, and then we cleared the rest of the HQ. To be honest, we have been fighting really well lately. It seems like everyone's finally become experienced. On his body I found a made longsword. Nice. And later, after we left, the crab raiders ended up taking Ark and the whole region, along with the cracks. Honestly, that result was fine with me. The crabs can't have it. Somewhere on the way towards the unwanted zone, we found the body of Stop. A dead giant skeleton. Bigger than normal skeletons, but clearly smaller than the behemoths buried in Obedience. Nobody really knows how he died. Even the name, Stop's Gamble, sounds like he took one last risk there, and Stop's garden is where he finally fell. Skeleton bandits treat him like a god. Everything else is just rumors. Then we crossed the unwanted zone and lived up to the name. There was nothing there except wildlife. Big things, hello again, and a lot of crabs. It looked atmospheric, sure, but I didn't want to lose another limb for scenery, so we kept moving. Soon we reached Black Scratch, a tech hunter town and their HQ. The place looked serious, big walls, lots of shops. What really caught my eye was the great library. But before I even stepped inside, slave traders walked into town, saw us and decided we looked profitable. Of course. And the tech hunters, they just watched like, not our problem. Fine. Then I finally got into the library. And yeah, that place is insane. Books, maps, blueprints. If you ever need knowledge, this is the kind of place that makes you feel poor again. And in the bar I found Bo. Turns out she's a woman. And no, she's not actually that big. She had already heard about my adventures and she wanted to join us to smash slavers. Her stats and gear were not impressive, but she was a decent medic, and honestly, I'll take that. I decided to lean into Bo's bloodthirst a little, and a day later we were already causing problems in Stormgap Coast. That's where Eye Socket sits, another slave camp. And Brink too. Now the southernmost United Cities town, ruled by Lady Tsugi. And somehow, we took both in less than 24 hours. Yeah, United Cities are collapsing right in front of my eyes. Although when I came back to Brink soon after, the town was completely wrecked, like, gone. Looks like the locals packed up and fled somewhere safer. And honestly, that's probably the smartest decision they could make. Before we hit the last UC territories, Hanks, Kim Sands, Spine Canyon and the Great Desert, I wanted to finish exploring Stormgap Coast and also check the last unknown spots along their border. Forbidden Isle, God, Howler Maze and Islands of None. And yeah, there were a couple interesting surprises. On the way to Forbidden Isle we ran into a preacher cult village. And it was packed. Dozens of sick cultists. The good news, they were absolutely harmless, like, not even worth worrying about. I didn't even notice when I killed their leader, the preacher. I had to search the pile to find his body. But he did have something nice on him, a May to Moon cleaver. After that, most of Stormgap Coast ended up under Empire Peasants' control. Except for one random deadcat village that somehow existed down here. No idea how they got here, but alright. Forbidden Isle looked tempting, don't fall for it. It's hostile as hell. Constant acid rain for starters. And then came the real problem. Iron spiders. Everywhere. In the middle of the island we found a huge factory pumping them out, run by the spider foreman. At this point the foreman wasn't even that scary, but he did have a mate to stop, so I will take it. And we found 2 AI cores too, which always feels like Christmas. Then we entered God, and after all the burned wastelands, rust fields and acid storms, it was honestly beautiful. It reminded me of Leviathan Coast, but with sky blue sands. The only downside? Big things. So many big things. Like, I'm pretty sure this is their homeland. They were on every corner, even in the water, of course. And the weirdest part, on one of the islands we found a man. His name was No Face. He immediately attacked us, so we put him down. But I still don't understand how he survived out here in the first place. That mystery is staying unsolved. After that we reached the shores of Howler Maze. And weirdly, it was calm, peaceful, almost cozy. It's basically a crab paradise. Crabs everywhere, in the wild, in the ruins, in everything we tried to loot. They even occupied a ruined town. And right in the middle of the town was a mega crab just casually walking around like it owns the place. Yeah, I couldn't ignore that. We killed it pretty fast. Its stats were not anything special, it was just really beefy. Other than that, nothing huge here. And then we checked Islands of None. And there was, in fact, none. Literally empty. But honestly, it would be a great base location. So yeah, quick expedition, now we could finally go back to the main job. Time to finish the United Cities. At first I stopped by Sin-kun. That's where I found Fort Simeon and made another alliance with the rebel farmers and rebel swordsmen, the last possible allies left in this war. And they were going to help, a lot. Also, in the east of this region I found two distant high villages. How the hell did they end up here? No idea, but okay. The next 10 days were basically the UC campaign. Same strategy as always. First we hit the slave infrastructure, farms, stone mines, camps, and only then we went for the towns. This time I avoided long fights whenever I could. Just one goal: break through to the noble house as fast as possible, and remove whoever was in charge. We started from south, pushing into the Heng region. After clearing the camps, we reached Heng itself, and it was already under attack by the rebel swordsmen. It was basically a civil war in progress, which was perfect for us. We took the town without too much trouble. But Heng wasn't the real prize, not even close. Because nearby was Trader's Edge, a semi-independent town and the actual headquarters of the Traders Guild. And that's where we finally found Longin, the head of the Traders Guild. Yeah, we made it. And the conversation with him was short. On the way into the Great Desert, we passed through Skim Sands and found Tengyu's Wall, a heavily guarded military prison, protected by some of the best equipped troops in the United Cities. But by now, they didn't really scare us. This place held the most dangerous criminals, at least according to the UC. The funniest part, the Vault Warden's name was Tengyu too. Yeah, like the Emperor, sure. I freed most of the prisoners, except the ones that looked way too suspicious. And judging by their reaction, no one has ever escaped from here. Either way, it caused chaos behind UC lines, which made the rest of the invasion easier. In Spine Canyon we ran into a pack of sand ninjas. So we had to clear their town, because I did not need ninja problems while fighting a collapsing empire. Then came the final push into the Great Desert. Once the camps were down, we could already call it. Officially, slavery in the United Cities was finished. But we were not stopping halfway. Rebel farmers and rebel swordsmen still had lawyers to deal with. So we helped clean up the last big towns: Bark, Shobatai, Stot. And then the capital, Heft, where I was supposed to meet Emperor Tengyu and settle things personally. And I'd love to tell you this was some grand final battle, but no. The guards were barely standing. We just walked into the palace, and Tengyu wasn't some proud tyrant on a golden throne. He was starving, exhausted, and in a fight he had nothing. So that was it. Another empire down. How many is it now? Third? Sounds about right. And yes, I absolutely sat on the throne for a minute. I had mixed feelings. My homeland fell, but I was still glad. Because for the first time in a long time, people here might actually get a chance to live freely. After the UC fell, the slave camps were abandoned and left to rot. And the world changed fast. Heng went to the Empire peasants. Trader's Edge went to the anti-slavers. Port North and Port South plus Bark, Shobatai and Heft, all Empire peasants. Stot went to tech hunters. and Okran's fist, which the UC had grabbed earlier, finally went to the Flotsam ninjas. About time. Even the rebel farmers in Sinkun and Dead Finger laid down their weapons, no longer needed, and joined the Empire peasants. And I even heard a rumor from the south. In Clown Stady, people decided to follow cat-lon and declare independence. And now they call themselves the Clown Steaders. Yeah, real creative down there. But the best part? Dream, Engine, Bust. They were already being rebuilt. Bars reopened, shops came back, people returned. Seeing that honestly felt good. And yeah, I was proud of what we achieved. I think we really did make this world a little better, as much as it's possible here. My father would have been proud too, even if he probably wouldn't agree with my methods. The only question now was, how do we keep this new world from falling apart again? But that was a problem for later. For now, we were done, so we headed home, to rest. But rest wasn't waiting for us. That's when we ran into Beep. Yeah, that Beep. I'm pretty sure half of you already forgot he existed. So it's time to tell you what he was doing this whole time. Remember when I said he would become a weapon? Well, he did. This wasn't the weak little hiver who would pass out from a slab. This was a killing machine. Cyber Beep. And yeah, the way he got there is a whole story. I'll keep it short. First, he worked in our town, hauling cargo, training strengths, doing the unglamorous grind. Once he got tougher, he went to Mongrel and joined the local guards, helping defend the town from fogman raids. Then, when he had enough experience, he started doing solo runs into the fog. And let me tell you, they did not always go well. More than once he crawled back to the gates half dead, sometimes missing another limb. Sometimes he got captured and eaten alive, and still managed to break free and escape. Beep didn't break. Eventually he lost all his limbs and replaced them with masterwork implants, both right there in Mongrel. And when Fogman stopped being target practice, Beep got inspired by our fight with the Bugmaster. He packed supplies, went straight to the Bugmaster's tower, set up a basic camp, and started hunting skin spiders day and night. At first he struggled. A couple times he nearly got eaten again. But in the end, after killing thousands of them, the biggest threat in Arak wasn't the spiders anymore. It was Beep. Honestly, at times it felt like he was going insane, and soon Shek will declare a hunt for him. But that's how he forced himself into what he always wanted to be, the strongest warrior. And one thought wouldn't leave him alone. The Bugmaster believes that whatever lives in the Ashlands is even stronger than him. That was the fight he was preparing for. So Beep wanted the final test, to duel that mythical warrior. No loot, no conquest, just a duel. If he wins, then he's the strongest warrior in the world. He asked if we wanted to join his march into the Ashlands. We said yes, because I wanted answers too. And because what the hell is really down there? And yeah, Beep's stats were insane. Some of them were already pushing near 100. Before we left, I upgraded everyone's gear, just in case. Our crafters finally finished the sets. If I hadn't messed up the indoor lighting, it would have been done twice as fast. Yeah. Nothing dramatic changed, same builds, but now almost everything was masterwork. The only thing I didn't replace was chainmail for the melee fighters, because that stuff takes forever to craft. And I also picked up something personal, a mate to katana, taken from Tengu's corpse. Felt symbolic. Alright, time to move. I decided we'd go to the Ashlands straight through, via Sniper Valley and Sonorous Dark, no detours, and we scout anything interesting on the way. The road was not short. Sniper Valley didn't show us anything truly new. It mostly felt like Stove's gamble, just more hostile, more intimidating. The main difference was the enemies, sniper bots, the same kind we saw guarding the Ashlands approach on the tower. Then we entered Sonorous Dark. And Sonorous Dark is a disgusting place. Constant acid rain. Everything looks dead and raw. And the inhabitants extremely hostile. And they are everywhere. If you are watching this for travel tips, don't. But this is where it got really interesting. Because almost immediately we ran into a patrol of skin bandits. Yeah, those ones. Skeletons wearing human skin. I did not expect to see them here. Even worse, the skeleton legion guarding the Ashlands Road didn't seem to care about them at all. And just a few minutes later, we stumbled right into their HQ. They'd built a whole base inside the crater. Negotiations? No. They wanted to peel our skin off. So we fought. Inside one of their skin houses we found their leader, Savant. And the funniest, sickest part, he was human. How he pulled this off, how he controlled them, I don't even want to know. Absolute lunatic. He wasn't the hard part. The hard part was his skin bandits. There were tons of them and they were genuinely strong. But we cleared the place. And Savant had a prize on him. A maid to no Dutch. Nice. I took that for myself. Before long we reached the Ashlands, and it was actually beautiful in a twisted way. If it was snow instead of ash, it would have been perfect. But this was the most dangerous place in the world, so we stayed sharp. Once this was the heart of the Second Empire. As I mentioned before, it was founded by skeletons. Probably because they were the ones who survived whatever wiped out the First Empire. Some people even think the skeletons caused it themselves, either as a response to obedience or out of fear they'd end up like the behemoths. Nobody knows the truth. But the Second Empire doesn't look like it started as a conquest machine. It feels more like they tried to fix the past. Rebuild civilization, reunite humanity, and recover the lost tech of the First Empire. And then it rotted. Over time, the Empire became more and more authoritarian. Child prisons, brutal crackdowns on pirates and cults, innocent citizens dying for stability. Skeletons who disagreed and sided with humans got decapitated and turned into mindless trolls. The same headless machines we already saw back in Venge. Then a great famine hit, and the whole thing cracked. And that's a big reason people still fear skeletons, even now. What exactly caused the fall is unclear. The most believable version is betrayal from inside mixed with rebellion from early Okronites. Either way, the Empire collapsed. Its emperor and his inner circle retreated into the Ashlands, and stayed there, in ash domes, for centuries. By now they are probably not just hiding, they are probably broken. The rest of the empire became ruins. Some settlements survived, and a lot of them likely turned into the towns that later became the United Cities. And now it finally clicked. This is who the Bugmaster was preparing for, and why Beep was obsessed. The Emperor of the Second Empire. Between us and the spot marked on the Bugmaster's map were 4 Ashland domes. I planned to hit them all. And each dome had one of the Emperor's old lieutenants inside. Dome 1, the head of agriculture, surrounded by trolls. Maybe those trolls were used as labor. After we killed him, we found memory logs. And the guy still blamed himself for not seeing the famine coming, for failing the empire, for the collapse. And yeah, it made me wonder if some of the cannibal nightmares started from mistakes like this. Dome 2, a Rhinobot with screamer units. From the logs it just wanted to help, but it has zero moral processing. It would help with anything, including atrocities. It didn't even understand why child prisons were wrong. Dome 3, General Junk and his hydraulic knights. According to the records, they fought on the front lines against pirates and cannibals. That's why the cannibals call skeletons the inedible ones. But over time, pirate started meaning anyone we don't like, and they were killing their own people more than actual pirates. Dome 4, General HUD 12 with an entire police detachment. He led the Empire's internal crackdowns, especially against rising cults. Heavy-handed, brutal. And the logs made it clear. The harder he crushed them, the faster everything escalated. It's hard not to see the irony. The man who killed cultists non-stop might have helped spark what later became the Holy Nation. And after the fourth dome, we finally reached the point on the map. Getting there was its own nightmare. Whoever lived here really wanted to disappear from the world. The place looked like the ruins of an old Second Empire settlement. Above it hung a massive structure, something like a space elevator or the remains of one. And nearby was a huge hole in the ground, like the earth got torn open, maybe by that same structure collapsing. Only two ash domes still stood here, and in the first one, we walked in and saw an army, storm trolls. Not a squad, not a crowd, an absurd number, something like 100. And when I saw their stats, I genuinely thought, this is it. This is where we die. Edge of the world, ash in our lungs, no one even knows we are here. And it turned into pure chaos. So much was happening I could barely process it. We hit so hard that some of their bodies literally launched into the air. But somehow we helped. Somehow we were even winning. And by the time it was over, nobody in our squad even went unconscious. I just stood there like, what the hell did we become? And in the second dome, Beep went in alone. That's where he found the legendary emperor, cat-lon, sitting on his throne, surrounded by piles of rusted junk like some kind of iron graveyard. Beep was way too happy about it. Cat-lon clearly wasn't ready for that kind of energy. But the moment he started talking, it was obvious he'd been alone for way too long. From his speech, it sounded like he truly believed he was protecting the world, that those storm trolls we fought were once skeletons who tried to help humans, and got punished for it. Because humans are just monsters. The more of them there are, the worse they get. And then he snapped completely, and attacked. Beep tried to stand his ground, but honestly, he barely had a chance. He couldn't dodge cat-lon's attacks, and his own hits did almost nothing. But he didn't quit. Even after getting knocked out, he kept getting back up and going again. In the end, all he managed was to scratch the legendary emperor. Before cat-lon just threw him out of the dome, unconscious. I really hoped Beep would survive that. And thank God he didn't come here completely alone. So we did the only thing that works against a monster like that. We brought numbers. Me, Stork, Burn, Hopes and Horde. And yeah, it was terrifying. cat-lon was doing insane damage. But 5 trained fighters in top gear is still 5 trained fighters in top gear. He couldn't hold forever. We shut him down for good. On the way back to my town, I kept thinking about something I'd heard once. The skeletons sometimes wipe their own memories just to avoid going insane. Because when you can live for thousands of years, your mind isn't built to carry all of it. And maybe that's true. Maybe cat-lon never reset himself, because he still remembered everything from the Second Empire. And that's exactly what broke him. He became obsessed with stopping the Empire from collapsing, even if it meant crushing the people he was supposed to protect. And honestly, we have seen other skeletons like that too. Armor King, obsessed with selling armor even after the whole town literally collapsed into the Vent River. Tin Fist, obsessed with freeing humans even if it caused chaos, famine and banditry. Spider Foreman, obsessed with building mechanical spiders, and Thrall Master, still making thralls and hunting people long after the skeleton uprising should have been history. Or maybe it's all just a story they tell. Maybe they remember everything perfectly and memory wipes are just cover. So nobody ever learns what really happened. Who knows? Skeletons are still one of the biggest mysteries in this world. We came home with that rare feeling of a job truly finished. For the first time in a long time, we could breathe. No alarms, no pursuit, no sense that the world would collapse again tomorrow. A few days later, Beep left with Agnew. They said they wanted to become the strongest warriors together, but this time not for war, for a dream. Two wanderers who might return someday, if they feel like it. Seta and the Shek who held our garrison went back to Esatu, to support her, and to remind the kingdom that strength comes in different forms. Sometimes it's not a glorious death in battle, it's holding the line at home, building and defending something that actually lasts. The people of our own town stayed. They reinforced the walls, expanded the workshops, took in newcomers. And before long, rumors started spreading across the land. Somewhere on the edge of the Fog Islands, a town had appeared. A place that could forge weapons and armor like the old world never truly died. And me? I went back to our first outpost. It survived, barely. But I rebuilt it, strengthened it, and turned it into our new base of operations. Because I didn't want to leave Great Desert and hand to fate. Those lands lived on fear and chains for too long, and when the United Cities fell, they weakened. And when a power weakens, the neighbors will arrive first. Not my enemies, my allies. And not with speeches, with armies. So now I had to put one banner over it all, a banner people recognized. Plot them, Dead Cat, Cannibal Hunters, the Shek, Anti-Slavers, the old rebel farmers and rebel swordsmen. People everywhere knew my name now. And as long as I am standing under this banner, no one is going to rush in just to see if it holds. If I can unite these lands, not to build a new empire, but to stop my allies from starting the next war, then maybe, for the first time, there is a chance for a peaceful life. And still, the world loves repeating its stories. I just hope that one day a guy like me doesn't show up at my doorstep, in rags, with a rusty axe, look at what I built, and decide it needs to burn. If you made it all the way here after 250 days and a few hours, thank you. Seriously, huge respect. Looks like I once again failed to make a 2-hour video, but hey, at least it's not 5 hours this time, so we take those wins. And it didn't take half a year to finish, but yeah, it definitely wasn't 1 month either. One day I'll manage it. Maybe. As always, I'm putting some of your best comments at the end of the video. Not so many this time, because I made some mistakes with the recent video, but anyway, stick around, you might see yours up there. And if you have got your own tips in saying Kenshi stories or ideas for the next run, drop them in the comments. You can also join the Discord, link in the description. If you enjoyed the ride, you know what helps the channel. Like, comment, subscribe, and maybe share this with a friend who also loves Kenshi. As promised, here is my mod load order. This exact list is also in the description with links. I also left short notes for each mod there, what it does and why it's in the list. Overall, I was really happy with the setup. It honestly felt like this is what Kenshi should have been like in its final form. But without the bloat and non-vanilla chaos you get in huge wormholes like Universal Wasteland Expansion, Genesis and so on. Those can kill immersion or just add a ton of bugs. I'm not saying I had zero crashes, but they were minimal. And as you saw, I triggered a lot of world states without issues. The only annoying bugs I remember: in Occurrence Feast I couldn't find the main Inquisitor and I couldn't enter some Ashland domes. But both were fixed by simply reloading the save. And I never imported my save, because honestly importing feels like it creates even more bugs. I avoid it completely, so yeah, I recommend this list. And just like I did in my Bannerlord Westeros video, I also made my own RESHADE config, using Marty's Mods shaders from the base tier of his subscription. I love his stuff, it's genuinely high quality. The config is on screen, it's mostly close to default settings. If you got questions about any of these, drop them in the comments. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.